Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today? Thank you all very much for being here this afternoon. Got a great crowd in here to start things off. 793 strong in the YouTube chat, 336 strong over on Rumble. Today's kind of a special day for us, seeing as we have Jose Vega working under contract as a correspondent journalist live in New York City outside the United Nations General Assembly. We're going to bring him in soon, but we want to get right started so that we can bring him in on time. So let's get going.
All right, let's rock and roll. So, hey, good news this week. Many countries have voted to recognize a Palestinian state. This from Renewable Matter. UN General Assembly, France and 9 other Western countries recognize Palestine as a state. Quote, France will recognize the Palestinian state. These were the words of President Emmanuel Macron in his speech at the conference jointly organized with Saudi Arabia during the United Nations General Assembly to support the two-state. I was thinking of his wife to support the two-state solution proposal. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan, attending alongside the French president, described it as a historic step. Macron was met with a lengthy round of applause, while Washington looked on with annoyance at the long parade of heads of state, ministers, and diplomats who had flocked to the conference, created to accelerate the creation of a sovereign national entity for the Palestinian people. 10 Western countries formally recognized Palestine as a state on Monday. Andorra, Australia, Belgium, Canada, Great Britain, Luxembourg, Portugal, Malta, and San Marino, in addition to France. Only Germany and Italy backed out, despite Minister of Foreign Affairs Antonio Tajani reiterating in a press conference that, quote, he will sign the document that seeks a two-state solution, a document that strongly urges Israel to allow humanitarian aid and anything else that may be useful to the Palestinian people. Tajani added that Italy will continue to help the Palestinian people achieve their dream, quote, that of being protected by a state that we want to recognize and are working to build more than any other. I think that speech was written by Kamala Harris. A shot at both sides. Talk about trying to get on every side of the issue.
Yeah.
A shot at both sides to please the many right-wing voters who are not very sympathetic to Zionism, but also to avoid upsetting Trump, who through his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had tried everything to thwart the conference sought by the French, which instead turned out to be a great diplomatic success. Now, when you do what we do, which requires a lot of research and looking at different news sources, it's very interesting how news is often suppressed in ways that are overt and sometimes ways that are more subtle. They can't not report on this. that all of these countries are recognizing a Palestinian state. But it's very odd that most of the news reports I looked at did not show the leaders, particularly England and France. You would think, if anything, they would include that. No. So I had to put together my own super cut and go around and find these things individually. So here's my own cut of what happened at the UN.
No matter how many tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of soldiers, they cannot erase from the face of earth a nation, the Palestinian nation, nor will they be able to succeed in eradicating tens of thousands, millions of Palestinians. We are here to stay, and there is no power on earth that will negate our existence. So for those who are living in denial and drunk with their ecstasy and victories, wake up. The only road is the road to peace. The only road is the road of the two-state solution, to live next to each other and peace and security. We are committed to that. The whole world is committed to that. There is only one party, led with group of fanatic leaders, who are refusing to accept that, and they are trying in a futile exercise to eradicate the existence of the Palestinian people and their national rights, including their right to self-determination, statehood, and the right of the refugees.
And let's be clear, statehood for the Palestinians is a right, not a reward.
Therefore, Belgium is giving out a strong political and diplomatic signal to the world today by joining the group of countries that announces the recognition of the State of Palestine in the margin of this high-level week of the United Nations General Assembly.
We declare that as of today, Luxembourg formally recognizes the State of Palestine.
First, the State of Palestine must be a fully fledged member of the United Nations.
Slovenia has acted. Yeah. We recognize Palestine together with Ireland, Norway and Spain.
I commend those who have taken the decision to recognize the State of Palestine this week, and I strongly urge those who have yet to do so to give it serious consideration.
We salute the countries that recognize Palestine, as Brazil did in 2010. We are already the vast majority of the 193 members of the UN.
Portugal formally recognized the State of Palestine as a sovereign state with full rights.
The recognition of the State of Palestine is the right step
on the
right side of history. To those who have yet to act,
big guy.
We say,
like 8 feet tall.
History
4
does
feet
not
wide.
stand still.
The time has come.
Big Arnold Palmer is a whole lot of
This
man,
is why,
that guy.
True to the historic commitment of my country to the Middle East, to peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is why I declare that today France recognizes the State of Palestine.
Now, given the role of England directly in creating Israel, this statement was pretty remarkable from the UK. Go back just a little.
75 years ago, Britain was rightly proud to recognize the State of Israel. But the promise of upholding Palestinian rights has gone unfulfilled. For decades, my country supported a two-state solution, but only recognized one state. That changes now, as we join more than 150 member states in recognizing the State of Palestine and protecting the pathway to peace.
That is a stronger statement than I expected from the UK, kind of tacitly acknowledging their long history in that region and their part in creating this situation. Of course, eliding responsibility. Oh, we hadn't noticed for the last 75 years that the Palestinians were being abused. We just noticed, but better late than never. So here is everyone's favorite sugar baby since Heidi Fleiss going on to rebuke the Western nations for recognizing Palestine.
For all of these Western nations that are recognizing a Palestinian state, the president has been very clear. He disagrees with this decision. He spoke about that in the UK, standing right next to his friend, Prime Minister Starmer. And he feels this does not do anything to release the hostages, which is the primary goal right now in Gaza, does nothing to end this conflict and bring this war to a close. And frankly, he believes it's a reward to Hamas. So he believes these decisions are just more talk and not enough action from some of our friends and allies, and I think you'll hear him talk about that tomorrow at the UN.
Which indeed he did, among many other things, to the shock and horror of the UN. His teleprompter broke, which did not help. So imagine the most rambling Trump speech you've ever seen, and then multiply it by 3. We didn't have time to get to it, but here's one of the more mild and coherent parts of that speech.
As everyone knows, I have also been deeply engaged in seeking a ceasefire in Gaza. Have to get that done. Have to get it done. Unfortunately, Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, including October 7th.
If I could just say really quickly, that's absolutely not true at all. As Glenn Lowry said, I remember when we were watching him arguing with John McWhorter about this. He says, if you don't want events like October 7th, the best thing you can do is enshrine Palestinians with a state. This way, there is a recognized body and an ability to actually organize and do diplomacy with the rest of the world. That's how you stop events like that. So I totally reject that it is a reward for Hamas to recognize Palestine as a state. I think it's completely the opposite.
Well, as did if you saw early in the cut I made, Gutierrez said
glitching or something.
You seem to be glitching, so maybe it's on my end.
I don't know.
Whose end is that on?
I don't know.
I see that too. But it's like, but I'm not sure if it's me or you.
How are we, folks? How am I coming through?
Yeah, let's let me see. Like I'm
says Russ is being
well.
hacked. Yeah. You sound like you sped up. There you go.
What
I would go in the back and then maybe re-enter in a different room. Like, don't exit the studio, but just.
All right,
like
but you're also appearing that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it says Russell is a bot.
But not you.
No, people are saying I look beautiful. People are saying great things about me.
This is nobody's ever seen a stream like this.
Yeah. Hold on. Try again.
Talk.
Yeah, I'm here. All right, here. Don't exit. Just open a new window and come back in the StreamYard. But don't exit. Leave that the way it is. Because if you exit, then you're going to have to put all the exhibits back in. So just open a new window in the browser and just try re-entering that way. Let's see if you can figure that out. Meantime, French Laundry says, hey, it's me, gay actor Michael Douglas. I like that one. Good one. Thank you, French Laundry. Appreciate that. All right, waiting for Russ to re-enter. See if we can make that happen. I see Jose out there. Jose, I see you there. What did he do? What did Russell do? All right. All right, talk. All right, I think I see. All right, I think you're good now.
You think so?
I mean, I don't know. Did you enter another browser? Go ahead, talk.
Hang on. It's my whole. I don't know.
What's that?
You're still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
It's yeah, I mean, this is clearly the Mossad. All right.
Well, now you
I
seem to
think
be
it
all
worked
right.
itself out. Now it seems okay. All right. I don't know what
All right,
that was.
fine.
That was like my whole computer was slow. Like I don't even think it was the internet. All right. So where were we? You were talking about Glenn Lowry.
Trump's thing, and how is it a reward? Yeah.
Right. And Gutierrez made the point in what was clearly a rebuke to that angle that this is a reward. Made a point of saying it's not a reward, it's a right. But beyond that, this whole thing is a rewriting of history. Netanyahu gave literally suitcases full of cash to Qatar to give to Hamas to avoid a two-state solution. He's presenting this as if these foul Palestinians just went and empowered a terrorist group. If you don't like Hamas, talk to Netanyahu. And to that point, Netanyahu made his own statement in which he made it very, very clear he has absolutely no intention of allowing a Palestinian state under any circumstances. Is that playing?
No, something's going on with your computer.
Yeah, all of my exhibits on my end are like black now. So like it says it's playing, but I think I have to reload my exhibits. All right, well, why don't... there. All right, I'll take out the other ones and just load that in from there.
Right. Well, why don't... I mean, you might just have to exit and re-enter. Make sure you close any other programs that are running on your computer, too, because that'll definitely slow it down. Is your editing software running? Because you said you had to do an edit.
But my editing software is always running.
Okay.
Like it's not like I don't usually have that open. I do.
Yeah, but it's good to close it anyway. Should we just bring in Jose? I mean, we have Jose. He's ready.
You know what? Let me just load in because it's the last video I have for this, and you can cut it in. Let me just load in Netanyahu's thing. I'll do that right now.
All right. I mean, you're coming through now. It's just your exhibit, so you may just want to load that one.
Well, probably whatever glitch just happened probably unloaded my videos.
Right.
So I just got the Netanyahu video, so we'll just cut that in. All right, so here is Netanyahu. Oh, is that still not working?
That's the old one. That's the old one.
What?
The new one is down here.
I got it.
לאותם מנהיגים שמכירים במדינה פלסטינית לאחר הטבח הנורא ב7 באוקטובר. אתם מעניקים פרס עצום לטרור. ויש לי
hang on, we should read this while it goes for the podcast people.
יש לי מסר ברור.
I have a clear message for those leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after the horrific massacre on October 7th. You are giving a massive reward to terror. And I have another message for you. It will not happen. There will not be a Palestinian state west of the Jordan River. For years, I have prevented the establishment of this terror state despite immense pressure both domestically and internationally. We did this with determination and with diplomatic wisdom. Not only that, we doubled Jewish settlement in Judea and Samaria, and we will continue on this path. The response to the latest attempt to impose a terror state in the heart of our land will be given after we return from the United States. Wait. Okay, so he's supposed to address the United Nations on Friday, and he's supposed to go back to the Oval Office with his laundry and with Miriam's 15-inch special to put Trump back in his place if he starts getting ornery, expecting to have his chairs pulled out at all times by our dear leader. So a lot of Arab countries like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia, that have been normalizing or have normalized relations with Israel are warning them not to take that step. But remember, as crazy as it seems, Netanyahu is the moderate there. You got Smotrich demanding and claiming that he's going to force a vote on just annexing the West Bank. Now, it's not that Netanyahu wouldn't like to do that, but he does try to calculate the political angles of what the consequences of that would be, unlike people like Smotrich. But if his right wing really pressures him to do that, will Israel go ahead and say the U.S. has our back anyway, which we will? This country's not going to abandon them no matter what. We've made that clear. Will they make the calculation, well, whatever, we don't need to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia? Maybe. I mean, Netanyahu is directly threatening to retaliate for this recognition, making it increasingly isolated and really a rogue state. I mean, this is a rogue state. Over 150 countries have recognized Palestine. You have the United States and Israel are really just against the rest of the world increasingly on this.
Well, that statement was just absolute nonsense. First of all, irrespective of what he said, it's a right, not a reward. I think you disempower the most militant factions of a society when you enshrine the society with a state, because you're giving them diplomatic power by enshrining them with a state. That's number one. Number two, he talks about in his diplomatic wisdom, he prevented a state. Diplomatic wisdom, you funneled cash literally to Hamas. So what kind of diplomatic wisdom are you talking about? Just completely upside down. Everything he says, completely the opposite is true. What else is new on that score? But yes, it is good to see all these countries come around and acknowledge a Palestinian state for sure. Okay, so now, folks, it is the United Nations General Assembly, and we have our correspondent, Jose Vega, who is on the ground. We're going to bring Jose in live from the streets of New York City in just a minute. But before that, I do want to just show you some of the work that he has been doing out there already. First, at a sort of makeshift Iran regime change exhibit funded by who knows who.
Follow me, okay? Are you recording? Do you see me? All right, so here we are at the United Nations. We're here at 45th Street and 2nd Avenue right now. And it looks like the Israeli propaganda regime is at an all-time high. As you can see down here, they've already got Khomeini. You can stomp all over Khomeini if you'd like, if you just walk over here. The place is also rifling with the journalists, people who are just trying to get stories, interviews, ask people why they're here. On top of the fact that you have giant propaganda wheels going on, like the Falun Dafa and others, trying to influence diplomats' opinions on, international governments. So it's kind of a chaotic scene here right now. You've also got a lot of police and a lot of security everywhere. Here's what I'm talking about here: this kind of stuff where you can just walk over Khomeini, down with Khomeini, down with Khomeini, down with Khomeini, down with Pezeshkian. Regime change by Iranians. These people are trying to convince people that they need a color revolution. It's completely crazy what's going on here at the United Nations. And this is here at Dag Hammarskjöld Square, what's going on. They set up a whole propaganda outlet, and, I don't exactly know who's putting this on, but this is insane. And this is clearly very well funded to try and get people to fund a war with Iran. So hopefully as the day goes on, we'll be able to interview more people and talk to more people and see what's going on. So stick around.
Well, there is pro-Palestinian protest there, and Jose was there as well.
I think it is. We've got Aaron Bushnell's name on there. All right, so you ready? All right, so today we're here at the Within Our Lifetime Palestine protest in front of the United Nations here on 46th Street and 2nd Avenue. Today is also Rafat Al-Harir's birthday. And in the spirit of his birthday, in the spirit of him being a poet, in the spirit of him being a journalist, I'm out here doing something I haven't done in a long time, which is being a journalist. And also recognizing the 250 plus other journalists that have been killed in Palestine. Today I pay homage to them by coming out here and doing my due diligence by covering this protest as well. So stick around for more.
And he was able to catch up with one of the protesters. Here's that. This is our last pre-recorded clip, and then we will bring Jose in live.
All righty, so Jose Vega here, correspondent for Due Dissidents, live at the United Nations, and today I'm here with
John Wilkes, president of Veterans for Peace, Albuquerque.
That is awesome. So tell me, why are you out here today?
I'm out here today because the U.S. is facilitating a genocide, and the only way we can stop it is get the people in the streets and demand it gets stopped.
Absolutely. So you know that all the world leaders are coming in here today, right? And that the world leaders are meeting to discuss the question of a recognition of a Palestinian state. Can you tell me what your thoughts are on that?
Well, first off, I wouldn't call them leaders if they were their office holders. If they were leaders, they would have done something 2 years ago. So that's the whole issue. Symbolic acts of recognizing Gaza is wonderful, however delayed or retarded, but now we need action. We need a support to the Freedom Flotilla, which is soon to land, 50 ships, boats, crewed by civilian activists. We need the aid vehicles to come in unrestricted. We need the arms to be cut off. We need the political cover to stop.
I agree. Is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of these, office holders, the United States vetoing ceasefire resolutions? Do you have any thoughts on that?
AIPAC is a foreign national entity and needs to be registered. People need to stop taking money from AIPAC and start listening to their constituents. That'd be a big start to getting a more democratic government.
Can you tell me a little bit about Veterans for Peace?
Veterans for Peace is 40 years old this year. It's an international organization. We have 120 chapters in the United States and 7 foreign chapters. Zimbabwe was inducted into our organization last Saturday. Our whole mission is to divulge the full, true cost of war. That's just not killing of soldiers or civilians, non-combatants. It's polluting the ground. It's buying all this military hardware that money needs to be diverted into other non-violent causes and issues.
Thank you kindly. It was nice interviewing you and talking to you.
All right, great work, Jose Vega. We're going to bring him in now. Yep. You all know him. He's our longtime friend. He's an activist and a candidate for New York's 15th congressional district, acting as Due Dissidents correspondent for the day. Jose Vega. Jose, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me okay? Am I coming across good?
Yeah, you're fine. You can bring the mic a little closer to your mouth, but you're good.
All right, well, let's see if this mic is even the one being picked up. But
no, it's not the one being picked up, no.
Makes sense. It's just the AirPods. Okay, so I'm here on 46th Street and 2nd Avenue here. The Within Our Lifetime Palestine people have set up a major rally here. I would say you can't really see the scope or the visibility of it because of just this one angle. They've added police tape, so you can't even get in anymore unless you go all the way down and about. I think that's one of the ways in which they're trying to suppress this action here. But overall, I think the energy is pretty electric for the second day of the United Nations that's meeting here to debate the question as to whether or not there should be a recognition of a Palestinian state. I've spoken with a lot of people here. Some of those videos I know you've got, we'll probably play them later at a later date or something. But, whether it was stumbling upon a regime change propaganda operation or talking to a lot of pro-Palestinian activists, it has been just a lot of fun. The mood here is energetic, and despite all the hardship and despite all the genocide going on, I think people are optimistic about the fact that there may be a real change.
Yeah, so what is the turnout for these Palestine protests? Because obviously up in the plaza where you had that regime change exhibit, so to speak, that's that Camera Show Plaza, which is quite large. So is there protest activity up there or down near the building itself? Because the UN's on First Avenue, right?
The UN is on First Avenue. They basically blocked off all of First Avenue for any political activity, and they've corralled all the pro-Palestine protests. So you can see the flags on the top here. I would say maybe there's about 200 people here or so, and it extends over here as well. It's definitely overflowing right now. They're not really sure how to actually contain this or what to do in that regard. all of Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, which is open to the public miraculously, has basically been overtaken by these pro-Iran regime change people. So there's no way people can go into Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza without, getting bombarded with, regime change propaganda. So all the actual protesters are here in 46th Street and 2nd Avenue.
Well, Jose, you have a lot of experience going down to the UN for protest. Whenever I've gone over there, even in my due dissidence days, there is always a lot of regime change propaganda there. Is that your experience? The Falun Gong people are always there when I've gone over. Like, there's nothing new about that.
No, there's nothing new about that, but I think it goes to show you as well how these regime operations actually work, and also how the persuasion of political opinion works, right? There's a reason why they do have a public outfit. There's a reason why they do try to talk to the common folk as well as the diplomats. See, when you're out here at the United Nations, you do get to talk to, influence, and see people with the blue press badges, or just the blue badges to get into the UN, period. Meaning that they know, the regime change people know, that public opinion is a factor, which I would say only doubles the importance for why you need to have kinds of pro-Palestine demonstrations like this, because they are influenced by this. You have to understand that these diplomats, ambassadors, the people that work for them are human beings too, meaning they're susceptible to the same pressures that we are and can be swayed in the same way we are as well. Not all of them are completely without conscience. So it is important that we do have these demonstrations out here, and it's important that it's focused. And this week in particular is explosive because it's about the question of a Palestinian state. And many world leaders are here to talk about that. So, we'll see. I honestly think that these kinds of protests do have an effect, will be positive towards a truly free Palestine.
Have you seen any diplomats walking around that you recognize, or have you seen anybody interact with anyone in the crowd? Because, the way the UN is set up, you can walk in and out. I'm sure there are ways in and out to avoid the crowd, but, it's right there in the city. It's right on the street. You pass by the UN a lot of times. You can make yourself very available to the public on your way in and out of the building. There are a lot of people there who are doing right by these protesters. So have you seen any interactions between them, or what do you think the likelihood of that might be?
Yeah, so I've seen delegations of countries like Mongolia, Ireland, South Africa, and other African countries that walk by. You can tell by their pins and stuff, and they might hold up their fist or they might clap and cheer and stuff, but they're clearly on a mission to get to the UN. The big dogs, the world leaders, and maybe even some of the top ambassadors, they're not allowed to just walk around in the public. They're being told that they've got to come in via the motorcade. So we've seen a couple of motorcades come by. Trump's motorcade was here this morning, Macron's as well. But that's the thing. Don't get caught up in just needing the big dogs. No. Well, what is this? Save the Palestinian people, stop the war. Great. All right. Anyway. No Falun Dafa propaganda here. We are pro-CCP here. Anyway, sorry. I'm being hijacked here. But regardless, the aides to these diplomats are just as important, because these are the people that advise the ambassadors, advise the diplomats, And it's also important why, if you're a protester, if you're an agitator, if you're somebody who calls yourself, an activist or an advocate for a free Palestine and end to genocide, you do have to know what you're talking about. You do have to know what's going on in the world, especially when you're dealing with the UN. If you're talking to them about Palestine, they can hit you with well, what about the genocide in Myanmar, or what the Ethiopians are doing to this country, or the 53 other conflicts. Right. You just have to be ready to know that stuff. I didn't even know that there was there's beef between, I believe, Ethiopia and Egypt over, water management, right? These are the kind of things that you have to know, so that when you do get an opportunity to talk to these people. I used to come to the UN at 6 a.m. to talk to these ambassadors, talk to these diplomats and their aides. And the first thing they want to know is, do you know what you're talking about? Or are you just somebody who's like a radical who wants a free Palestine, who doesn't actually understand geopolitics? And that's not to say that that's wrong. Of course, it's right to be out here to demand the end of the slaughter of children. But if you want to be one league above it, you just got to know your shit. Excuse me, your stuff. We're live.
Do you see those due dissidents? We're not worried about that, Jose. They call us the home of the F-bomb. I've heard. So have you seen Zionist protesters out there?
Honestly, no.
Because usually they'll come to bother the pro-Palestine protesters when they know there's going to be a lot of them.
I have not seen any Zionists. Have you seen any Zionists? I'm talking to my cameraman, camera woman behind the phone right now. Have you seen any Zionists? No. Yeah, we haven't seen any Zionists, any pro-Israelis. You know, they're all in the UN right now. They're probably, I mean, I think, for example, like these the pro-regime Iranian people, I kept asking them, like, don't you think it's weird that Israel wants a regime change? And they just said, well, objectively, it's a good thing that Israel attacked Iran because now that you know, they've weakened the regime. And they're like, Israel-Palestine is a whole other thing. And I just kept asking, like, okay, but is there a genocide? And he just kept, that's a whole other thing. I was like, no, it's not a whole other thing. You know, that's a cute sign, ma'am. Oh, well, anyway, I tried to, she has this baby holding up a not in our name sign. Oh, anyway, sorry. Hey, there you go. Look at that. What's that? Come here.
Go ahead.
Here.
Pick it up. Pick it up, camera woman.
She wanted to say hi. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. We're big fans. Tavis Gibbons, Kate Johnson. We watch you 100% live all the time.
Oh, awesome.
And,
right on.
Cool.
Thank you.
I said awesome and cool and thank you. You want to hold up that sign? You want to hold up the sign so they can see what you're doing? There you go.
There we go. Right on.
All right.
Awesome.
Right on.
Where you were by watching you live on their show. I'm like,
oh, you were watching live?
Oh, she was watching live and found us there. Wow, that's far out.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Funny.
Thank you.
Oh, I hope so. With your help, I will. Thanks.
All right. So are you a little nervous being out? Are you a little nervous being out there?
What do you mean, nervous?
If there are no Zionists, because you know where else you didn't see Zionists? 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I wasn't thinking about that until you brought that up. And so, you know, well, but see, that's the thing, I don't know. You know, I was on your show last week talking about how Zionists will stage terrorist action to try and create a state of tension. So it is a very big possibility, of course. I mean, that's always in the back of my mind, but you also can't be dominated by fear. That is the one thing I would let everybody know is you cannot be dominated by fear. You know, I think you have to think about the people in Palestine that don't have a choice. You know, when they are being rained on by Reaper drones and missiles, you know, we have a choice to act and we should take it. You know, despite the hardships, despite the violence that may come across us, we do this for a greater purpose than ourselves.
All right. Well, hey, before you go, because I know you're going to get more stuff and we're going to be showing your stuff throughout the week. Go ahead.
Jose, you look marvelous. And I just want to say, some people are speculating that you stopped taking Tylenol. That's why you.
It's true. I did stop taking Tylenol.
Yeah.
And as a result, I've seen my autism slowly dissipate.
Yeah, right. You seem much more sociable. You seem much friendlier.
It's like the first time I've seen you make eye contact.
Better eye contact today. Yeah.
Hold on. Can we just get this here? I'm live right now. Can you show that over there? Right there. There you go.
There you go. Excellent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Beautiful.
Went to Palestine. And if you read the latest autobiography, he talks about anti-Zionism.
Malcolm X.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And also Muhammad Ali.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's right.
So did Michael Jackson.
So did Michael Jackson, apparently.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hey, before we let you go, because I know you're going to get more footage for us, so we'll be showing it on Thursday and probably even some on Sunday as well, because this GA is going on all week, obviously. I do want you here to watch this piece of video, because you did confront a Newsmax reporter, or we caught the tail end, so I don't know if you initiated this conversation or if he did, but let's take a look at this video here.
Go for it. I just think it's kind of crazy that, you know, you're sponsoring influencers to go to Israel. Why? I'm not. Well, I know you're not, but your outlet is. You're working for Newsmax.
But how is that fake? Huh? Even if they did, right? How would that make Newsmax fake news?
Why would it make Newsmax fake news? Because you're an Israeli propaganda outlet. That's why. You only report one side of the news and you downplay and demonize Palestinians.
Great to meet you.
Okay. Well, you should read this report by the Grayzone.
I just did. Thank you.
Good
luck on the campaign trip.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go drop some methylene blue in a broad's margarita and have myself a good time. I'll see you next time. Good luck out there, kid. Yeah.
Well, what happened there was I saw the Newsmax people there, and I just screamed out fake news. And then he said, "Oh yeah, well, why don't you talk about it? Why are we fake news?" And I started talking, and Morgan she started recording as I was I was reading the article from Max Blumenthal to the guide. So Morgan started recording, and that's what ended up transpiring there. But he said, "I want to record you. I want to interview you." I told him I was a congressional candidate, and that I thought his news outlet was an Israeli propaganda outlet. And then you saw what happened there with the video. So that's what that was.
Nice. Good work. That was a very Jose style interaction.
That's it.
There.
That's it.
Yeah.
Keaton showed me that clip. I said, that's the perfect correspondent for us.
Yeah, right. Now you're referring to
Jordan can play it straight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not our lane.
Now you were referring to the new Max article, because Max has been dropping a lot of articles just at incredible breakneck speed. Yeah, but one of them did mention Newsmax. Yeah.
Right, that Newsmax had sponsored, or all of the influencers who had Hamptons, they had paid for a trip to Israel. So yeah, that's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Nice. Let's watch that one more time for the road.
I just think it's kind of crazy that you're sponsoring influencers to go to Israel. Why? I'm not. Well, I know you're not, but your outlet is. You're working for Newsmax.
But how is that fake? Huh? Even if they did, right? How would that make Newsmax fake news?
Why would it make Newsmax fake news? Because you're an Israeli propaganda outlet. That's why. You only report one side of the news, and you downplay and demonize Palestinians.
Great to meet you.
Okay.
Okay. How many other outlets do you see out there talking to people? I know there's got to be people out. There's got to be news trucks out there covering the event and stuff. But are there any other outlets that you could tell that are out doing kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, I know. Telemundo was out here earlier. I did see a CBS journalist out here. And there's also French press, international press. I'm actually next to a real journalist, I think. He's got a Today microphone next to him. He's got a whole camera and light set up just right there. So, I mean, I guess, Morgan doesn't want to turn the camera, I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah, so, we're here, we're also here. Anyway, yeah.
All right. Cool, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us live. And, yeah, hang out, get as much stuff as you can. We'll show as much of it as we can throughout the week. But, yeah, appreciate you, man. And Morgan can't hear us now because you got the headphones. But tell her thank you very much for everything she's doing as well.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
guys.
man.
Good luck out there. Be
Great
safe
job.
out there. All right. Bye-bye. All right. That's Jose Vega, everybody. He's going to get back to work and get some more great stuff. That's cool. Cool stuff out there. So we're super glad we could make that happen. Thanks very much to Jose.
And this is, who really made that happen? You made that happen, because we're starting to hire correspondents, which we've talked about doing for a very long time. We have a lot of people here in New York City who would be willing to go out and do this, but we're not going to make them do it on the arm. So that's part of what your donations go to.
Exactly. So we are paying Jose. We got to dock him 5 cents for the F-bomb, just like the kids do. They make their dad pay a nickel when they curse, right? Exactly. We
Put it in the swear jar.
Right. With the swear jar. We wouldn't be his good gay dads if we didn't have a swear jar. Right?
Exactly.
But other than that, great work by Jose Vega. Ovan the King says, anybody notice that the day after Charlie Kirk gets shot, they voted and blocked the release of the Epstein files? No, I didn't notice that, actually. So thanks for letting us know. But yeah, that's something else.
I did notice that. And you know what? Mission accomplished, because we were so busy covering that, we never got to that.
Exactly.
I did notice that. And yeah, that's the whole point.
Wow. A big shout out to two of my favorite Red Sea pedestrians. I like that. Love the Scottish friendly timing of this show. Thank you, Sean Hurl. Appreciate that very much.
What is it over there? We started at 8 there, right?
8 o'clock. Yeah, 7 or 8, depending on
7 or 8.
Daylight savings or something. Matrix.
Which, by the way, I'm wearing the shirt because our friend Shama is going to be in town tomorrow.
That's right. An event at OR Books tomorrow.
Which I will be at.
Yeah.
You want to check it out? Professor Richard Wolf's going to be there.
Yep. Awesome. That's in Alphabet City, right? Yeah.
Yep.
United we stand, Luigi we fall. Thank you, Matrix. Clearly, Israel seems like Kirk's death finally gave the powers that be the mandate they needed to rewrite the Constitution for techno-fascism. Indeed. Thank you. I'm rooting for Jose, says Chris Bedford, not scumbag Richie Torres. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that very much. Nocturnal Human says, I'm not saying electoral politics is our solution, but what if Jose runs for president with Shama as his Elon? Jose and Shama would be great. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Hey, did you see that story about Elon Musk's father? The New York Times had a big piece today about 5 of his kids accused him of sexually abusing them.
What?
Yeah, that just broke like before
Elon
we went
Musk's
on.
father?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that
All
just
right.
broke like before we went on.
No, one of our stories will be on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have to cover that on Thursday for sure. Let's see here. Vega, very excellent government again. Yes, you should. That should be. That's a good one. Thank you for that. Macron, Candace Owens is not equipped to cross swords with my Brigitte. Thank you for that, Eric Husso. Appreciate that very much. All right, so let's move right on along here. What do we got? Okay. All right, so our friend Max Blumenthal has been very, very busy, not just in his personal life lately, but it's amazing the output that he has generated given all of that. And he came out with another banger last night. Top pro-Israel TPUSA donor terminated support for Kirk in days before death, sources say. Ultra-Zionist billionaire Robert Shulman was one of Charlie Kirk's most committed donors. But as Kirk fell under attack for his increasingly critical Israel views during his final weeks, sources say Shulman ended funding for TPUSA. As his campus tour approached, Kirk was subjected to an almost daily lobbying campaign from Netanyahu's allies. At the front of the TPUSA complex is the Bill and Rebecca Dunn Freedom Center, named for the late commodity trader Bill Dunn. Adjacent buildings feature plaques commemorating the mega donors who have fueled the rise of the conservative movement, from the Uline family, I hope I'm saying that right, not really, but it'd be nice to the Koch brothers, to evangelical Christian asset manager Foster Friess. Caddy corner from the Freedom Center is the Pearson Building. According to a TPUSA insider, this structure was to be emblazoned with the name of one of Kirk's largest and most committed backers, the tech mogul Robert Shulman. A preeminent funder of right-wing Zionist and anti-Muslim causes across the Atlantic, Shulman's millions helped transform Kirk from a young age into one of Israel's most effective Gentile assets. Shulman's Millions could be the name of like a bank. Shulman's Millions.
Yeah.
Be an ice cream stand. However, as Kirk drifted from the official Netanyahu-enforced line on Israel in the past year, expressing frustration with onerous demands from Zionist donors and hosting the leading conservative critics of Israel at his TPUSA events, Shulman apparently grew resentful. A TPUSA insider has told the Grayzone that Shulman recently canceled plans to erect the plaque bearing his name inside the conservative organization's office complex. Those who contribute $1 million or more to TPUSA become eligible for an honorary plaque, but Shulman's donations were said to be considerably higher. Few donors have done more than Shulman to fuel the influence of the Zionist movement's anti-Muslim pro-Likud wing inside the United States. So here is a tweet from Loki. This is him back in 2021 talking about he uses the pen as his sword and the pen to fill out his checkbook.
Use the pen, who by their writings support those who do the actual fighting. I would like to be on the front line, wielding a sword in this battle, but that wasn't meant to be. So instead, I wield a pen. I'm a writer. Now, most of you don't know that, but for the past 20 years, I've written one book each year. Now, none of my books have made it to Amazon Top 10, and certainly not to the New York Times bestsellers list.
Imagine that.
The book that I just finished writing this year is entitled 2019. It's a checkbook.
Get it? They're checkbooks. That's why they're not on the bestsellers list. These are the jokes, people. These are the unfunny.
Try
Jews.
the fish.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's a checkbook. That's why it's not on the New York Times bestseller list. You notice the people went along with that joke because, New York Times left-wing rag, right? Yeah. Ooh.
Titled 2019. It's a checkbook. With this pen and my checkbook, I provide ammunition I wield a pen to provide ammunition to those organizations like ZOA who are on the front lines in this battle.
So you notice the just very militant language coming from a guy who's just like likening the pen to a sword, right? And these are the kinds of people
Ammunition.
who Charlie was kind of in deep with, the last few months. Besides nurturing the career of Kirk, Shulman has sponsored the David Horowitz Freedom Center, named for the neocon operative who Kirk described as his mentor. Anti-Islam.
You know who else considered him a mentor? Stephen Miller.
Oh, is that right? Horowitz?
That's going to come up in the Miller story too. Yeah.
Interesting. Anti-Islam activists from Frank Gaffney to the English hooligan Tommy Robinson to Dutch politician Geert Wilders and Canada's rebel media have benefited from Shulman's support as well. Shulman has also invested substantially in the career of Laura Loomer, a former rebel media personality and fanatically anti-Palestinian provocateur who enjoys direct access to Trump and members of his inner circle, shaping personnel and policy decisions while lashing out at insufficiently pro-Israel staffers. Weeks before the TPUSA founder's killing, Loomer blasted Kirk for his inconsistent support for Israel. She was especially piqued by Kurt's platforming of Tucker Carlson, whom she branded an uppity, waspy snob who serves as a mouthpiece for Iran and Qatar. Quote, Charlie speaks out of both sides of his mouth. His messaging is all over the place, and some of us just want to know where he stands, Loomer tweeted on July 12, 2025. She went on to call Kirk a political opportunist and a charlatan who stabbed Trump in the back by hosting Dave Smith, an anti-Zionist podcaster and comedian at TPUSA Summit. Now, here is that tweet. Now, what I will say for Loomer, and, like I said, none of this is to make any accusations about who killed Charlie Kirk. I think these stories have tremendous news value irrespective of that because it just shows behind the scenes how Israel manipulates public opinion. What makes guys like Ackman and some of the people in this story attract suspicion more so than Loomer is that they lie about having argued with Charlie Kirk. Loomer, to her credit, comes out and gives what is a normal response, which is, yeah, we had our disagreements. I'm pretty open about that. She hasn't gone back to deleted tweets and tried to lie about things that she has said the way some of these other characters have. So I just wanted to add that in. Because she's behaving much less suspiciously than a lot of these other characters are like, well, we got along great. We were fine.
we can now conclusively say Charlie Kirk was not killed by Laura Loomer.
Right. Exactly. Take that off the clue board. Right. Grayzone was informed by Shulman, and the Grayzone was informed that Shulman announced his termination of contributions to TPUSA during a private dinner of another organization he funds, the American Freedom Alliance. According to an attendee of the event, which was held in Los Angeles on September 6th, Shulman stated that he would be ending his donations to Kirk, diverting them instead to a reliably pro-Likud anti-Islam group like the AFA, once again, American Freedom Alliance. The AFA's homepage is currently promoting a $250,000 matching fund donation from an unnamed donor directly below a tribute to Kirk. A photo shows Kirk speaking from the dais at a past AFA event. The tribute links to a eulogy which blames the left's consistent drumbeat of hate, of misrepresentation, of fomenting violence against us for the TPUSA founder's death. Again, it's very similar to Netanyahu coming out making a video.
Right.
Me? Not me.
Yeah.
How ridiculous.
Yeah.
Reached by phone. See, this is what I'm talking about. Shulman hung up as soon as this reporter asked him about his alleged statement announcing his termination of support for TPUSA. That's it. These characters don't even want to talk about it. Loomer actually tweeted at Max, who tweeted back at her. They've actually been somewhat in communication on X in the public view. These other people are like, click, hang up, nothing. The Grayzone also contacted AFA President Karen Sigmund by phone and asked her about Shulman's alleged comments regarding Kirk during her organization's gala. The only part I remember is about his generosity to us. A seemingly irritated Siegman commented before hanging up abruptly. Again, another hang up. Bill Whittle, a conservative pundit who emceed the September 6th AFA dinner, told the Grayzone he could neither confirm nor deny that Shulman had declared his intention to cut off funding to Kirk's organization. It was a private event, he emphasized. AFA has published several videos on its YouTube channel containing speeches from the gala, but Shulman's address is absent. Andrew Colvett, the executive producer and spokesperson for TPUSA, who put out the Magic Bullet story the other day, did not respond to a request for comment delivered by direct message to his personal Twitter X account, where he follows this reporter, meaning Max, of course.
Right.
You also have Max citing this. Mike Cernovich tweeting out on the 13th, Charlie was about to lose his last major donor because he refused to ban Tucker Carlson from events. There are a lot of people shedding crocodile tears. The billionaires must be exposed for the cretins that they are. Along with the apparent rift between Shulman and Kirk, the Grayzone has learned that Netanyahu's U.S. allies intensified their campaign to manage the late TPUSA founder as his fateful first campus tour date approach. So once again, I think there's tremendous news value in all of this, irrespective of who was responsible for Kirk's death. And I think it is likely, in my view, that Tyler Robinson was involved much in the way that Lee Harvey Oswald was involved in the assassination of JFK. The issue is that, and what is widely theorized, I think correctly, is that Oswald, in that case, did not act alone, that there were collaborators. You saw Kash Patel validate a lot of those questions in his tweet the other day, saying we're looking into accomplices. So all of this inquiry has legs, and it's actually getting the attention of people. What they do with that, is that an opportunity for them to create some other cover story? Possibly. I would say probably, but there's clearly validity to this speculation as indicated by the response of people in and around real power. And I think it is incredibly useful to take this peek behind the curtain, which is why I was so grateful to Max's reporting on this, because whoever killed Charlie Kirk, and for whatever reason, it is incredibly, I think, important to look behind the scenes at how this support for Israel is really manufactured through strong arm tactics, whether they did it or not. And I apologize to people who watch the show every time. We have first-time viewers who watch these clips. I'm not wed to any specific narrative. We are a left-wing channel. We made our bones in this space by being willing to criticize some facets of the left. So I'm willing to accept any narrative that's proven true and condemn the shooting, no matter what the truth of this is. But that's very much an open question right now. And every development like this, I think, just validates the further inquiry into what actually happened here.
I think a lot of what you're seeing with this is the result of crackpots running these kinds of conspiracies and not being competent enough to cover their tracks well. No people with basic competence would have released those text messages and purported that this is how two 20-somethings were talking to each other while one of them was on the run from the authorities. It was like text messages written by the Bronte sisters in the middle of this assassination by a couple of Gen Zers. It makes absolutely no sense, but you know what? It makes sense if you think of getting Crazy Eyes Patel to put out the propaganda and the cover story. Yeah, that's what you would get. That's what a moron like that would put out as a cover story. And now Patel pretending, in my opinion, to take a lot of what people are noticing seriously is just a prelude to sheepdogging them back into the official narrative, or attempting to, very much like they did with the Epstein files, right? Oh yeah, no, we're on it. Oh, turns out nothing to see here. That is, I would bet a lot that that's how his investigation is going to conclude. It goes back to what Oliver Stone said in JFK, or the words he put in the mouth of Garrison. Even if you don't think this theory or that theory is true, there's just no way that the official story is true. If you look at all of these dots and connect them, there's just absolutely no way what they're claiming happened is what actually went down. We just saw the story about you're claiming Charlie Kirk had Superman bone. I mean, come on. And I have connected this to Butler, which was another case where you had a kid around the same age, no obvious motive to do something like that, who happened to appear in a BlackRock commercial of all things. This stuff looks very MK Ultra for anyone who has not read Tom O'Neill's Chaos. I would highly recommend it to help you consider some of what the government might be capable of in terms of programming people to set themselves up as patsies in these situations. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it kind of looks that way. Looks a lot more that way than what they're saying happened.
Well, yeah, especially when you see them so wedded to one specific narrative. Like, it does not look like they are trying to really get to the bottom of this. They had this whole trans thing ready to go,
Yes.
the second this happened.
Oh, lo and behold, they come up with a trans angle when they were saying it from the second this happened. They were putting that out there.
Exactly. And don't take our word for it. Watch Michael Savage. The thing with the trans boyfriend bullshit. Like, you got people from all over the political spectrum asking these questions, and this is why it's worth asking these questions, because look,
Can't take the bullshit from this fucking government. It's lying to us.
Exactly. Support for Israel in this country is much more manufactured than real, and it is eroding very quickly amongst young people on both sides of the aisle. You saw Megyn Kelly and Tucker talk about this, how young people, this is what largely, I think, led Charlie Kirk to start to ask these questions was, you have this organization with all these chapters, with all these young people, you start to see a brewing of sentiment that if you as the leader do not respond to, that's going to spell doom for your organization at some point. Because at some point, if you're leading young people and young people are mostly on one side of this issue and you're on the other, then, that's going to put a sort of a short era of influence on your organization. So you have to adapt. And adapting is very tough because a lot of the money people, as we're learning, were insistent that he not ask those kinds of questions or even platform people who are asking those kinds of questions. And so what we're seeing here is that there was tremendous tension between them in the final months of his life. Now, whether or not that connects to his killing, that is still an important news story either way.
Of course. Well, when you look at some of the memes floating around among younger conservatives or libertarian or right-wing people, like noticing is antiseptic, like those things are not coming out of the libs. That's not coming out of the left. That's coming from the conservatives. And it's actually a good example. One of the most bizarro world elements of the modern era for me has been to see how, because the so-called left, the liberal, the establishment portion of that identifies as left, has become so conformist, the kind of like very rebellious wordplay and kind of inventive iconography, what you today would call meme play, but back in the day it would have been artwork in magazines or on t-shirts that are extremely subversive and critical of the system. It's really coming out of young people who identify as on the right and as conservatives. And because they are coming at things with really a counterculture perspective, much more so than any portion of the left that's tied to the Democratic Party. You have this portion of the self-identified right that is still tied to the Republican Party that is subversive and prone to deconstruct narratives. So if anything, like that kind of real examination of the whole picture of the Zionist influence project, a lot of that online is coming from their own base.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is largely a function of the fact that they won, right? They achieved power. So that means you're going to have a lot of support still inside the party because they still feel like they're invested in some way because broadly speaking,
there's something in it
won.
for them.
There's something in it for them. Like if Bernie had won the presidency, we would have been, jockeying for position in the same way that a lot of these people are.
We'd be Pod Save America now.
Yeah, right, exactly. We'd be Pod Save America. We'd be the ones who are like, all right, we still support Bernie, but God damn it, you're wrong on this. Come on, like we'd have been in that position, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because we would have
owned it.
Well, we'd have felt, as Charlie, I think, felt, that it's like you came all this way to get power. Now you have some power. Do you just burn the people in power because you're starting to think differently about this thing, or do you try to negotiate that in some way? And that became very tense, obviously.
Yep.
All right. Professor Brown notes, says accelerationism. Why complicate? Get Miller and Loomer in a room with alcohol and Sado porn. This spawns a miniature black hole which sucks in Earth. Bada bing. Get the fucking space hawk ready, Elon. Thank you. Jose wins office as he promised to go to Israel and fuck the wall. I want to hear that wailing wall wail. That's what we should have asked him. Yeah, we should have asked him that. That should be a question we ask all candidates, right?
Yeah. We'll put it on our questionnaire.
Yeah. El Kaminsky, thanks for the donation. I highly recommend the new interview with Greg Stoker from the Flotilla on the reality.
Well, he's still on the Flotilla.
He is still, yeah. But I think he has signal. I think he could do it.
Yeah, can
yeah. On the reality of what recognizing a Palestinian state means. Not good, believe me, not good. You really need to interview him. Thank you, Kaminsky. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we'd love to have him on.
Have you guys seen part 1 of Tucker's 9/11 files? No, I know that drops today, right? Seems like a limited hangout so far, but hoping he comes deeper down the rabbit hole. I thought all 5 episodes or all however many episodes were getting released all at once. Or did you only see the first one? I thought he was dropping all of them at the same time. El Kaminsky says the podcast is called Colonial Outcast. Great content and analysis. Thank you for that. Okay, what do we got here? Oh, Dorian Marquise. Oh, look at Jose, all clean shaven and dressed up and shit. He's growing up so fast, crying in the palms of my hands. Thank you.
Yeah, he lost a lot of weight, too.
He did. Looks good. Looks very healthy. Sean Brock, thanks for the $5. Why are people acting like the U.S. had to be tricked or blackmailed into funding genocide when U.S. corporations and politicians profited more than anyone from it? Yeah. I mean, tricked or well, you're talking about AIPAC. A lot of that has to do with AIPAC. I think, assuming that's what you're talking about.
I think you do have politicians who would come out against it if not for those factors.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of them would go like Chuck Schumer. I don't think I don't think you need to buy him, right? But I think there are a lot of them who are compromised in one way or another.
Yes, indeed. Mark Pugliese, to fund this bold expansion, remote reporting. There you go. Thank you. Black Spot.
Speaking of which, Jose's running against Bitchy Torres.
That's right.
You think this gay dude from the South Bronx would be a fanatical Zionist without the money? I don't think so.
Of course. That's all about the money. Absolutely. You guys rock. Thank you for the Vega clips. Thank you, Black Spock. Appreciate that very much, man. All right. Let's move right on along. Jimmy Kimmel is back, kind of.
He's back. He's back for 60% of U.S. households at least. So this was the statement that Disney issued yesterday. The Walt Disney Company issued the following statement today regarding Jimmy Kimmel Live. Last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy. And after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. Now, the discourse around this is really the story. Everyone's trying to spin it. Here's Jack Posobiec. His spin was kind of unique to him. Jimmy Kimmel lied about the identity of a violent domestic terrorist and blamed Charlie's murder on MAGA. Now his show is coming back, and ABC didn't even make him apologize. I don't want to hear one word from the media about misinformation ever again. Okay, well, I don't want to hear one word from you about misinformation ever again after this tweet, because he did not lie about the identity of the shooter. This is what he actually said, okay? We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. Now, in the English language, the way that that sentence actually is structured, does not make a claim about what the shooter is. The sentence is entirely about MAGA's framing of who the shooter is. And of course, at that time, they hadn't found Tyler Robinson yet, so they didn't have an angle on it. Or if they had found him, they hadn't released that he's dating a trans or whatever other shit that they put out. But in any case, that is a lie that he lied about who the shooter was. He offered an opinion. It's an opinion about MAGA spin. That's all that sentence says. Does it imply that he's one of those? Sure, it does, but it doesn't actually state that. He did not go up there and say, this kid was obviously MAGA. He didn't say that. Did not say that. That's a lie. You are lying. You are spreading disinformation by saying he lied about the identity of a violent domestic terrorist. So maybe you shouldn't talk about misinformation ever again, Jack Posobiec. This was the more common spin because they got so much shit, even from people like Ted Cruz, even from Candace Owens, about the suppression of freedom of speech. So now a lot of right-wingers and others are trying to spin this as evidence that, in fact, Trump does not wield any particular power over the decision-making of these networks. Matt Walsh, Kimmel's show was put on pause for like 3 days, and yet leftists will look us dead in the eyes and tell us that this was a greater attack on free speech than shooting and killing Charlie Kirk. All right, for those of you who are new to the discourse, this is what you call a straw man. It's what you call a straw man. I don't know who that leftist is that he's talking about. You can always find some random people who liked New Coke better, but it doesn't mean it characterizes an entire population. That is not a common take, what Matt is offering there.
Well, what he's also suggesting there, too, sorry to interject, but he's also saying, hey, we never meant to fire him. It was just a 3-day suspension. That's all it was, right? He's implying that they never really meant to can him, which, of course, they did.
Right. Scott Jennings. So basically, his employer suspended him for being an insensitive prick. And we don't live in an authoritarian regime? Got it. Okay. Piers Morgan. I don't know why he got into the middle of this, but reinforcing that. So Kimmel wasn't canceled by Trump or the FCC after all, but temporarily suspended by his employer because they thought what he said was ill-timed and insensitive. Well, no, actually, and this was reported not just in Rolling Stone, it was also reported in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, they were pissing themselves all day, one ABC insider tells Rolling Stone. In the hours leading up to the decision to pull Kimmel, two sources familiar with the matter say senior executives at ABC, Disney, and affiliates convened emergency meetings to figure out how to minimize the damage. Multiple execs felt that Kimmel had not actually said anything over the line, the two sources say, but the threat of Trump administration retaliation loomed. So yes, they did not think that what he said was particularly insensitive or over the line, but they were afraid of retaliation from the Trump administration. As Keaton pointed out, their intention was not to suspend him for 3 days. If that was their intention, that's what they would have said up front. This is a temporary suspension. That's not what they said. Here's a very typical example of the breast beating that you see from the absolutely not snowflake people caught up in their feelings over facts, right-wingers. Megyn Kelly, must be nice to be a leftist. Cancellation lasts 5 nights, and you're right back under the Klieg lights. On the right, you're underground. Let's take a look at Megyn Kelly's channel there. 3.95 million subscribers, fully monetized. I mean, if that's underground, you know what, Megan? I'll trade with you. I would love to go underground if that is what underground looks like. Candace, nobody's going to call her left wing other than Netanyahu, right? 5.17 million subscribers, Candace Owens says. Tucker Carlson over on X, what does he have? 16.6 million followers. Jesus, even Benny in the closet is cleaning up. 3.9 million followers. Or, there's one right-winger I know who's done very, very well. That guy. He's the fucking president. The hell are you talking about? Yeah, you're way underground. You're there. You're like the Viet Cong going through the tunnels over there. And let's point out, all of this breast beating is on behalf of what? See, this is the grift. This is the anti-woke right-wing grift. This is all in service of these corporations that only made these decisions to protect a pending $6.2 billion merger. They didn't want to piss off the Trump administration, so they offered up Kimmel as a sacrificial lamb, just like they did with Colbert at CBS. You want to say something, Keaton?
Oh, no.
Okay. So what really happened? Well, they're between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, they wanted to satisfy Trump. On the other hand, they don't want to crash and burn financially to the point that it devalues them going into a merger. Right? I mean, they could force a lower price for the merger if their stock price continues to plummet, as it began to do. This is from Popbase. 400 plus celebrities signed the ACLU's open letter condemning ABC Disney's suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Signees include Selena Gomez, Olivia Rodrigo, Ben Platt, Al Yankovic, that's random, Meryl Streep, Bryan Cranston, Lin-Manuel Miranda, that's one of Disney's golden boys there, Tom Hanks, Jennifer Aniston, Robert De Niro, no surprise there, and more. And they were getting some very visible protests. That's in Burbank there. And the stock price was indeed tanking. I kind of keep an eye on Disney stock. It was hanging out about 118, 119 before all this hit. You got to remember, that's you're talking about billions of dollars when you shave off $4 or $5 from the stock price. So Sinclair Broadcasting comes out. This is one of the network affiliates that carries ABC, and they came out and announced they're gonna block Jimmy Kimmel from the networks they control. Beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return. So predictably, Benny in the closet, this is what actual bravery looks like. Yeah, this is going over the barbed wire fence with a machine gun kind of bravery right there. Thank you, Sinclair. Nick Sorter, major breaking. Sinclair Broadcast Group, who owns 31 ABC stations, just announced they will refuse to broadcast Jimmy Kimmel's show when ABC puts him back on the air. Thank you, Sinclair. Nexstar must do the same. Sinclair has major concerns about the show and won't bring Kimmel back until changes are made, the company said. Okay, so now this is a really great example. If you want to be, a media literate person, this is very instructive of how people like Nick Sorter, how people like Benny Johnson manipulate your perception and show you one thing when it's convenient and show you another thing when it's convenient. You remember that really, really creepy video that was going around a while back of all the different news stations all saying the same thing? I bet you could guess which news station that was. Let's take a look at that. Let's revisit that for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Fox and Jessica Headley. Wolf. balanced.
Noon.
This is dangerous to democracy. Huh?
To our democracy.
Dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely 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 dangerous to our democracy.
So guess who owned all those stations? You guessed it. That was Sinclair. That was Sinclair. And you know who really informed people about that for the most part? It was right-wingers. It was very much people who were in that lane, who were alerting people to the fact that all of these different anchors spoke from the same script. And now these same people are going to flip on a dime and elevate Sinclair as some kind of a heroic corporation for not carrying Jimmy Kimmel. Do you see? You could not find a better example of how these people are marching you right into fascism under the premise that that's where your power lies, that is your empowerment to support these essentially fascist organizations that were your bitter enemy 5 minutes ago. These same people were calling your attention to this video 5 minutes ago. Now, all of a sudden, they want you to fully support the company that gave all of these anchors that script. Now, you want to talk about strange bedfellows. Gavin Newsom, thank you to everyone but Brendan Carr. That's the FCC commissioner. This is a win for free speech everywhere. Now, I'm not sure if this is confirmed, but it is rumored that Gavin Newsom is going to be his first guest. Mitch McConnell. Well, my colleague Ted Cruz said it looked just like Goodfellas. As a First Amendment guy myself, I think he's probably got it right. You don't have to like what somebody says on TV to agree that the government should be getting involved here. Of all people, you got McConnell, you got Ted Cruz, truly a dogs and cats living together moment. Once again, we've made this very clear. Kimmel is a disgrace to comedy. He's horrible. If he were going to get fired for something, I actually agree with some people who've said he should have gotten fired for the Wheezy comment, saying that people should die. I think if the network had just made the decision, we don't want somebody on the air who would wish death on people who don't want to take an experimental vaccine. I would have been fine with that. I wouldn't have had shit to say about that. Clearly, this is not about what he said. As I demonstrated, what they're claiming was the character of what he said was not what he said. Did it imply that the guy was MAGA? Yes, but he did not state that. It was actually about the MAGA-verse framing it as him not being MAGA at a time when it wasn't clear what his ideology is. I would argue, given the very strange MK Ultra nature of the story that's being put out, it's still not clear. But does anyone really doubt the real issue is that he went on to do actually a pretty funny bit about Trump talking about his ballroom when he was asked about Charlie Kirk? I mean, that's what it's really about. We have people inside ABC saying explicitly that's exactly what it was about. They got too much backlash. We know, especially in the social media age, a boycott can pick up tremendous momentum very quickly, and it can cost you a lot of money. And you're between a rock and a hard place. Okay. They don't want to piss off Trump because they got a merger pending. You got a merger pending. Your stock price is going to affect the price you can get for the company. So they wound up erring on the side of putting Kimmel back on, and they'll try to give Trump a soapy hand job another way, I'm sure. But if you look at how these accounts, how these right-wing podcasters and influencers are trying to spin this as if nothing to see here with Trump on the one hand. If you're on the left, you're invisible when, they're completely running the country. They control the courts. They control all branches of government. They have the most popular podcasts. They have the most successful news networks, right? Fox still buries all the competition, but yeah, they're in the Underground Railroad. They're hiding in the basement of the church, these people.
Yeah, well, we should say, I mean, it just came in that Nexstar is also going to be preempting him with the news tonight. So it's going to be on very few TVs. But it will be streaming, and I don't know if they'll put this on.
I think that's 40% of was Sinclair. I don't know how many Nexstar has. So yeah.
So it is going to be blacked out in quite a few places, but it will also be streaming online. And I think what this is going to prove, it's what censorship always proves, is that censorship is ultimately ineffective because the whole country is waiting to hear what Jimmy Kimmel has to say tonight.
Right.
When's the last time anyone gave a shit what Jimmy Kimmel had to say about anything? Never. I mean, who the hell cares? Right.
Like,
but his shit is going to go
curious.
viral tonight. No doubt. Yeah.
I saw a conservative account say on X, who here has never watched an entire episode of Jimmy Kimmel? Raise your hand. I can raise my hand. I've literally never watched an episode of Jimmy Kimmel. I've seen clips for the job. I couldn't be less interested in Jimmy Kimmel, but yeah, I'm interested now. Of course I want to see that episode.
Right. Everybody's going to want, and even if it's not on TV, those clips are going to be, I bet these clips are going to be more viral than the clips that got him suspended. I think more people are going to watch this wondering what he's going to say, wondering, hey, is, just which direction is he going to go? What guests is he going to have on? What are his guests going to say? Like, you make somebody more relevant when you try and cancel them. Obviously, this is what everybody was saying all along. This has been a bipartisan.
Who would have been talking about Jimmy Kimmel if they just ignored it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you just ignored it, no one would have cared. No one cared. Right. No one cares about him. Now all of a sudden, you're making people care about him. Right. So censorship is not only is it anti-American, it's counterproductive to the censors because it ends up biting them in the ass. How do you think RFK became HHS secretary? Because of all the COVID censorship, right?
Yep.
It always comes around to bite you in the ass when you try and censor people. Always.
And if anyone should understand that, it's these people.
It's them.
It's these people. The fucking wokies became so censorious. You were able to cast your authoritarian movement as a movement for freedom and the First Amendment.
People are selling Tylenol on the black market now. Yeah. Right? Because of censorship. Exactly. So they should know for sure. All right, folks. Quick word from John Coa has got a new single out. It's called Just a Little Off the Rails. So for those familiar with John's work, he's been a sponsor of ours for a while now. His new song is the latest from his upcoming album, A to Z. And the foundation of these tracks began as raw live acoustic performances captured a few years ago. Initially, John considered releasing just those solo acoustic versions, but he found it easier to make the art than to put it out. Now these tracks are seeing the light of day. Just a Little Off the Rails is the first single. It's an autobiographical song with lyrics that may hit home for a lot of people. So go to John Coa's Spotify page to check it out. You can check him out at dudissidents.com/Coa. That gives you a link to all of his socials, his Apple, his Spotify, and he's got a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/@John Coa. So please do go and check that out and support our dissident artists and sponsors. All righty. Thanks everybody for being here today. What do we got? 2956 in the YouTube channel.
The year 2525.
And 1176. Beautiful. Thanks everybody very much for being here. All right, we'll go to some super chats and rumble rants. By the way, Film Club is tonight for patrons. So we'll see you guys at 8 o'clock. You should have those emails there. So members, we'll see you for Film Club. 3 Days of the Condor is the presentation this evening for Robert Redford.
Perfect movie for this moment. Tribute to Redford. And it's really going to play as ahead of its time and its conspiratorial take on the government.
That's right. I think Laura Loomer should have that one police light on her head and sirens go off if she ever dares to speak. Thank you. Crystal Waters, Loomer looks like Jigsaw in drag. Showman looks like Mel Brooks playing a villain in the table read for Spaceballs 2.5. Thank you, Crystal Waters. Appreciate that. T-Bone says, Russ is right. Jose has been looking fresh and happy. Russ and Keaton, you two make me laugh so much at every show, though. Even though your stories are dark. Love DD. Thanks, Jake. Thank you, T-Bone. That's very kind of you to say. Appreciate that. Glad we can lighten things up. Well, this next story is kind of a perfect example of something that is kind of funny and crazy at the same time, I think. All right, Eric Rousseau says, turn Charlie Kirk into Jesus Christ with super bones. Can we use his name as profanity instead? God damn, Charlie Kirk. Fuck. Oh, like Jesus Christ. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, that's what comes with martyrdom, I guess, right? Right, as people start, in Maltese, they have, Madonna, when you stub your toe, people use the Lord's name in vain when they hurt themselves. That's what they do. That's what God damn it is, Jesus fucking Christ, exactly. You become immortalized in the vocabulary of the average person. No doubt about that. All right, what else we got over here? We got some YouTube super chats up here. Collapsing support for your organization like the U.S. government. Thank you, Edward Campbell. Edward Campbell, longtime supporter of the show. Thank you. Ryan Spence, Laura, Madam Tussauds Loomer. Thank you. You know what real New Yorkers call the Wailing Wall? A spot to piss at. There you go. Thank you, Virtuoso. Appreciate that. Marvin Vargas says, do a show on 250 legislators who went to kiss wall. Thank you, Marvin. Appreciate that. What politician would come out against genocide were it not for AIPAC? All these politicians are controlled by the party, especially Dems. Force the vote. Well, I mean, AIPAC is just one. I mean, it's a lobbying group. It's part of a bigger network, obviously. But I think the point is that a lot of these people who, absent that influence, wouldn't give a shit either way about Israel are staunchly pro-Israel because of that pressure that comes to bear on them. I think that's the point. If you change D's to P's in your name, it sounds similar to piss in pants. Good observation, Jolly Man Big Boy. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Let's move right on along here. Okay, folks. All right. So this was all over Twitter last night, and man, this is some crazy stuff, I'll say, because it's the first 15 seconds of the video. So the findings are in, and it's a acid of, well, let's see how you say that. Something causes autism. Let's find out. Let's hear from Donald Trump.
The FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen.
Good.
Is that okay?
Is that okay? That's the thing you're talking about. That's Tylenol. That's the thing that you're advising against.
It's basically commonly known as Tylenol.
That's right.
During pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
Mm-hmm.
So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good.
You're such a fantastic moron.
For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that. It's a small number of cases, I think. But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, that's what you're going to have to do. You'll take
So you'll
a
take it if you need
Tylenol,
it,
but
right?
it'll be very sparingly.
Yes. So, okay. So the upshot is you shouldn't overuse Tylenol while pregnant. Yeah, because there may
Wow.
be a risk of autism. Okay, we'll get into this a little bit more. But he goes from saying not good, not good. Don't take it unless you need it. Then maybe you're gonna have to take it. But otherwise, don't do it. I just recommend strongly that you don't use it. Here we go. Here he is, sort of expanding upon that point.
Tylenol, essentially. It's basically Tylenol, essentially, because I noticed that term is used throughout this conference.
Yeah, acetaminophen.
So
It's
it's
the term you
essentially
really struggle with.
Tylenol.
Yeah.
And I just recommend strongly that you don't use Tylenol unless it's absolutely necessary. I understand it's maybe 10% of the women that are pregnant are, would perhaps be forced to use it. And that would mean you just can't tough it out. No matter what you do, you can't tough it out. So that's up to you and your doctor. But there's a very strong recommendation, maybe stronger from me than from the group, because they're waiting for certain studies.
By the group, he's talking about his own FDA, which we will get into in a minute.
Just want to say, I want to say it like it is. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. If you just can't, I mean, it's fight like hell not to take it. There may be a point where you have to, and that you have to work out with yourself. So don't take Tylenol. Other thing.
No, by fight like hell, he means, I guess, try to endure a high fever for as long as you can, which is very dangerous advice to give a pregnant mother, especially in the first trimester. Running a high fever for a prolonged period of time is very dangerous for the fetus and for the mother. Can cause all kinds of things, heart defects, facial abnormalities. Like, it's not good to run a high fever, especially in the early stages of pregnancy. Now, should you take Tylenol for a minor backache? No, you are advised to use it sparingly, as we will say. So really, I mean, they're really not saying much of anything here. This strikes me as an opportunity to let this fine gentleman have his moment in the sun, because, hey, we ran the biggest rug pull in the history of American politics with this administration, breaking every single promise that we made. So to try to keep Maha in line, why don't we give this guy here his moment in the sun? So here's RFK making slightly more sense than Donald Trump.
Our autism work that are vital for parents to know as they make these decisions. First, HHS will act on acetaminophen. The FDA is responding to clinical and laboratory studies that suggest a potential association between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes, including later diagnosis for ADHD and autism. Scientists have proposed biological mechanisms linking prenatal acetaminophen exposure to altered brain development. We have also evaluated the contrary studies that show no association. Today, the FDA will issue a physician's notice about the risk of acetaminophen during pregnancy and begin the process to initiate a safety label change. HHS will launch a nationwide public service campaign to inform families and protect public health. FDA also recognized that acetaminophen is often the only tool for fevers and pain in pregnancy, as other alternatives have well-documented adverse effects.
Right. So what he's talking about there is ibuprofen and aspirin are both proven to be quite dangerous for pregnant women to take. So if they're running a high fever, really have no choice but to either tough it out or pop a Tylenol.
HHS wants, therefore, to encourage clinicians to exercise their best judgment in the use of acetaminophen for fevers and pain in pregnancy by prescribing the lowest effective dose for the shortest necessary duration and only when treatment is required. Furthermore, thanks to also...
By the way, I can tell you, as someone whose wife has been pregnant a couple times, someone whose wife works with pregnant women and new mothers routinely, someone whose wife works with lots of other people who work with pregnant women all the time, doctors always tell you to use any medicine sparingly when pregnant. It goes without saying, you don't abuse pills when you're pregnant. You're very conscious of everything you put in your body when you're pregnant. So what he's saying is, use it sparingly when you absolutely need it because you can't use anything else, which is already the recommendation. Like, that's already what people are advised to do. Go on.
And only when treatment is required. Furthermore, thanks also to the politicization of science, the safety of acetaminophen.
Thanks to the politicization of science, an obvious bottom-feeding lunatic like me is making this speech right now. Obvious crackpot has ascended to the top of HHS thanks to the politicization of science. Yes, it is true.
I first realized the dangers of Tylenol when my ex-wife self-deleted, and although most people think it's because of the horrific psychological abuse and infidelities I committed against her, she actually took a lot of Tylenol.
Against the risk of neurodevelopmental disorders in young children has never been validated. Prudent medicine, therefore, suggests caution in acetaminophen use by young children, especially since strong evidence also has associated it with liver toxicity. Some studies have also found the use of acetaminophen in children can potentially prolong viral illnesses. FDA will drive new research to safeguard mothers, children, and families. In addition to a possible acetaminophen connection to autism for pregnant women, infants, and toddlers, our research has revealed that folate deficiency in a child's brain can lead to autism.
Okay. Now, the folate, look, people know I don't comment on health matters that much because it's not an area of expertise. I could just recognize a big gulp of bullshit juice when I see it, and that's exactly what this is. So the folate stuff, there's been speculation. Dr. Oz sells the folinic acid. That's true, but so do a lot of other supplement companies. Like, I don't think Dr. Oz this is a profiteering scheme by Dr. Oz. I've seen some speculation about that. But his couple of claims there that pregnant women should use it sparingly, only when you need it, and that it can cause liver toxicity, that is widely known. So much so that it's on the fucking box of Tylenol. I have a box of Tylenol right here. I own Tylenol, okay? From time to time, I take Tylenol.
Is that your own picture?
Yes, I took this picture as a primary source for the Due Dissidence audience. Ask a doctor before use if you have liver disease. You shouldn't drink a lot when you take Tylenol because it can tax the liver. And it says there, if pregnant or breastfeeding, ask doctor before you. Well, where does it say this? Where is it there? Where's the goddamn label here? If pregnant or breastfeeding, ask a health professional before use. So what they're saying there is, hey, you don't want to abuse this if you're pregnant and take too much of it because there's risks. What he said about children is true. Infants should not take any fever reducer until they're at least 3 months old. And even then, you have to take it sparingly when needed. That's when a young child, when an infant, 12 weeks or younger, gets the flu or a fever, that's considered a medical emergency because they cannot tolerate these over-the-counter remedies that would bring the fever down. So what he's saying there, like I said, it's already on the fucking label. This is already widely known that you should not abuse Tylenol when pregnant. There are certain risks for liver complication, but the issue at hand here when it comes to medicine is that medicine is never a game of absolutes. It's always a game of playing the percentages and betting the odds. My kid's pediatrician says there's something we always say as doctors to each other, which is you never say never and you never say always. In other words, no medication works 100% of the time, and no medication is guaranteed never to work. You're always playing the percentages. So if you're a pregnant mother and you're running 103 fever, is there a risk to taking a Tylenol? Yeah, there's some risk to taking a Tylenol. It's generally accepted, and I think rightly so, that risk is much, much lower than saying, well, we're just going to tough it out. Because if you run a fever for a prolonged period of time as a new mother, you can cause permanent damage to the fetus, if not death. Your fetus can die and you can die too. So it's always a game of percentages here. Okay. And don't take my word for this. A lot of the Maha people are not really buying this much either. Dave Cartland quotes here Mary Holland, Tylenol is not what's driving the autism epidemic. Vaccines are, according to her, for YouTube. I'm just providing context. That's her opinion, not mine. Don't come for me. I don't know what the rules are about this. Mary Holland just warned that Trump and RFK's announcement today may be a sideshow. You think? You think? Oh, yeah, maybe a sideshow. Yeah, of course. Of course it's a sideshow. Now, if you don't believe that, let's read the actual FDA statement as well as the letter that they sent to physicians about this. So this is Trump's FDA dated September 22nd, 2025. This is what they're talking about when they go to the microphone. The U.S. FDA today initiated the process for a label change for acetaminophen, Tylenol, and similar products to reflect evidence suggesting that the use of acetaminophen by pregnant women may be associated with increased risk of neurological conditions such as autism and ADHD in children. The agency also issued a related letter alerting physicians. The FDA is taking action to make parents and doctors aware of a considerable body of evidence about potential risks associated with acetaminophen, said FDA Commissioner Marty Makary. Even with this body of evidence, the choice still belongs with parents. The precautionary principle may lead many to avoid using acetaminophen during pregnancy, especially since most low-grade fevers don't require treatment. It remains reasonable, however, for pregnant women to use acetaminophen in certain scenarios. You see, that's much different from Trump. Don't use it. Not good. Don't use it. Tough it out, right? What they're saying is, yeah, don't use it unless you have to. But if you have to, you have to, because running a high fever is dangerous and there are no alternative remedies. It is important to note that while an association between acetaminophen and neurological conditions has been described in many studies, a causal relationship has not been established, and there are contrary studies in the scientific literature. It also noted that acetaminophen is the only over-the-counter drug approved for use to treat fevers during pregnancy, and high fevers in pregnant women can pose a risk to their children. Additionally, aspirin and ibuprofen have well-documented adverse impacts on the fetus. Okay, so that's the statement on the FDA's website. Now we will just, for the sake of thoroughness, we will read the letter that they sent to physicians, which I know where this is going to end up in a lot of doctors' offices already. In recent years, evidence has accumulated suggesting that the use of acetaminophen by pregnant women may be associated with an increased risk of neurological conditions such as autism and ADHD in children. Some studies have described that the risk may be most pronounced when acetaminophen is taken chronically throughout pregnancy to childbirth. These concerns may be magnified by the fact that a very young child's liver may still be developing, and thus a child's ability to metabolize the drug may be limited. Yes, that is true. So true to the point where kids 3 months and younger are not advised to take it at all, which is why pregnant mothers should not abuse it. They should take it only when necessary, which is the current guidance. It's printed right on a fucking box. Okay. To be clear, while an association between acetaminophen and autism has been described in many studies, a causal relationship has not been established, and there are contrary studies in the scientific literature. The association is an ongoing area of scientific debate, and clinicians should be aware of the issue in their clinical decision-making, especially given that most short-term fevers in pregnant women and young children do not require medication. In the spirit of patient safety and prudent medicine, clinicians should consider minimizing the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy for routine low-grade fevers. This consideration should also be balanced with the fact that acetaminophen is the safest over-the-counter alternative in pregnancy among analgesics, whatever the fuck that is, and
analgesics.
Analgesics.
That's anti-allergy, I believe.
Oh, okay. And antipyretics, aspirin and ibuprofen have well-documented adverse impacts on the fetus. So there you have it. I mean, what they are basically saying is what I've been saying, what every doctor I've ever encountered has ever said, what everybody
no,
says.
that's a pain reliever, an analgesic.
Oh, an allergy. Okay. Well, Tylenol is a pain reliever as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, should you take it if your fucking elbow hurts when you're pregnant? No. As far as I understand, like, everybody's pretty much on the same page about that. So what really this says is nothing particularly new. Now, look, I can go into the different studies. There's no point in doing that. People who are predisposed to thinking one way are going to say, well, the studies that say what I want are right, and the studies that don't say what I want are wrong. There have been examination of these studies. A lot of the studies claiming a correlation rely on the memory of the parent. In other words, how much did you take? Well, that's not considered very reliable. Also, studies that have tried to establish some correlation here between Tylenol and autism. I know one of them said that there was a suggestion of a link at first, but then when those women had other children, the other children, if they didn't take Tylenol during those other children, still came out with autism, which suggests that it is more genetic than brought on by Tylenol. Like I said, I'm not going to litigate all of that because, first of all, I'm not equipped to litigate all of that. And second, I don't think it matters much in the environment that we're in. I think people are sort of wed to whatever their predetermined view of this is. But the fact remains essentially what they're saying, which is, yeah, you don't want to abuse Tylenol while you're pregnant because there could be complications resulting from Tylenol, and it does have potential for liver problems. Again, all this is printed right on the label. It says, ask your health professional before use if you're pregnant. What does that mean? It means talk it over with your doctor to see if it's worth taking. That's the current guidance. And to look at a guy like this,
Immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that.
You kind of fucking tell me.
Acetaminophen. Is that okay?
Doesn't even know literally what he is talking about. Doesn't know the first thing about what he is talking about. You're going to take health advice from this guy. I'm sorry, man. You're fucking crazy. The advice is already be careful. You're pregnant. Everybody knows that. Already. And so, yeah, this to me strikes it. As Mary Holland said, don't take my word for it. Take one of the Maha people word for it. It's a sideshow. It's a sideshow. I think they trotted RFK out there to make this proclamation to throw Maha people a bone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's a reason they're not going after the vaccines because this is a minor thing that really, as you pointed out, doesn't change anything. This is already labeled on the box. You start giving guidance that you don't want people taking vaccines. Look, at the end of the day,
well, they do get into that a little bit, and I'll tell you.
At the end of the day, they can talk all of this shit. You go and you start banning vaccines, or you start saying that nobody under a certain age can get a measles vaccine. The results of that are going to be so politically damaging, not to mention life-threatening for a lot of people. They just can't do it. So this is a sideshow. I've also pointed out this whole idea that vaccines are the cause. There's a correlation rather than causation element going on here. When you look at, well, this happened at the same time as this happened, that's correlation, right? It doesn't prove a causal effect. Well, you want to talk about that, what I would consider a very likely culprit to what some people will deny. It's just better diagnostics. No, I think there's a rise in autism legitimately. I think that's part of the rising numbers, sure. Like kids we back in the day considered nerds or weird or geeks. Looking back now, a lot of them were autistic and they didn't get diagnosed that way. So yeah, that's an element of it. I don't think that's all of it. It seems to have really exploded with the introduction of smartphones, which we know that this technology literally alters the brain. You don't have to speculate at all. They've already done the neural scans. Infants who have been exposed to screens, they're visible neurological changes in them. So why don't you look at that? Well, because you start looking at that is costing tech companies trillions of dollars. If what you come up with is it's because they're exposed to these screens, so nobody under 16 should be using these things more than 1 or 2 hours a day. Do you know how much money that's going to cost in advertising to these companies? They won't even ask the question. I'm not saying that's what it is. Isn't it a little weird not to ask that question? Like if you're going to look at, they're talking about, well, they actually said that in this conference. Well, you have to look at what is present that wasn't present before.
Right.
Well, That seems like a pretty big thing that was present that wasn't present before. Like, by that logic, why aren't you looking at that? Because it would cost too much fucking money. They won't even really, my prediction, they're not even really going to go after the vaccines, whatever you think about the veracity of their claims about that. But I will say this. This is something that people have a very hard time with. The idea that no one's coming to save you and that everyone's a bad actor, that everyone in power is a bad actor. You might feel justly that medicine has long been politicized. And yes, did they politicize medicine under Fauci during COVID? Absolutely, they politicized
no doubt.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they made medicine a culture war. And that decision, for any reasonable person observing, warned that was going to have horrific consequences, because it was the one thing, it was the one area left in the public sphere that most people would set aside partisanship and consider it above that and beyond that. And you dragged it down into that realm by politicizing that. I haven't been focusing on this partly because of the way it's being weaponized right now. I don't want to help, but I was on this beat for a long time. It was part of my argument about claiming without any substantiation that children who are confused about gender should be given life-altering medical treatments. And they straight out lied about the reversibility of those treatments. They straight out lied about it. People saw that. People saw that, and it made them lose faith in the experts. The thing that I think people have a hard time processing is, well, okay, but that doesn't mean these people are not crackpots. It means that because a uniquely for-profit medical industry, as it is in this country, unusually for-profit, unlike most of the rest of the world, abused the faith that the public had in science and increasingly blatantly politicized it. That doesn't mean the crackpots who took advantage of the resulting loss of faith, justified loss of faith, are not crackpots. These people are crackpots. Like, you just went from the frying pan into the fire.
Of course. And you talk about the politicization of medicine. This is literally the politicization of medicine. This is a show for the Rescue the Republic people who got played and are starting to realize that they got played, to put on a little show for them. And what's irresponsible, the thing that's irresponsible about Trump going up there and saying don't take it, is that's not what his own FDA said in the statement. And it's not what they said in the letter to the doctors. What they said in the letter to the doctors is essentially what it says on the side of the fucking box, which is be careful with it if you're pregnant. Right? Don't take it willy-nilly. That's essentially what the letter says. Now, they're citing studies that establish correlation, but not causation, right? They mention that in the letter. A doctor is going to read that and be like, yeah, we know that. We know that already. Correlation doesn't equal causation. Okay, citing that in the letter means nothing. Most doctors, I'd say all doctors, worth their weight in salt, no, yeah, of course you have to be careful with what you put in your body when you're pregnant. That's a rule across the board. So this changes none of that. Trump going out there saying, don't take it, don't take it. If there are people who are, I'm going to be very respectful here, who are gullible enough to watch Donald Trump on TV saying, don't take a Tylenol, and they choose not to take a Tylenol, well, wow, you are a misguided person, because that's not what his own FDA said. That's not what the letter to the doctor said. The letter to the doctor does not say don't take it. Letter to the doctor says there's studies that say one thing, there's studies that say another thing. It's still the safest over-the-counter remedy for a high fever if you're pregnant. And so you have no other choice but to either tough it out, which, like I said, carries tremendous risk, or take a Tylenol, which, frankly, I'm not convinced carries all that much risk myself. Is there some risk to every medical intervention? Yes, especially when you're pregnant. That's why the box says talk to your doctor before you take this stuff if you're pregnant. Nothing new there, really, just a political sideshow. So Mary Holland, correct about that. In my view. But if you want to see some real fucking jackassery, and you want to, if you are not convinced Donald Trump knows nothing about what he's talking about here, there is a little bit about vaccines. And we do have to play a couple of these clips because this is pretty amazing as well.
Break up your visits to the doctors. Break them up. Do it in 5 if you can. Now, it's inconvenient. It's inconvenient. Oh, you have to go back another year later. You're going to go back each year for 4 years, 5 years, 3 years. Just break it up. Break it up because it's too much liquid. Too many different
liquid
things are going into that baby.
The problem with vaccines, too much liquid. Too much liquid. That's what my old boss used to say about beer when he was starting to switch to hard liquors. Like, beer is just too much liquid for me. I got to do scotch now. Yeah, too much liquid. That's the problem.
Like, you ever been to the keg parties? It's you know, where they shoot the whole thing there. It's like that.
It's
only
like
with
that.
a baby.
Because it's too much liquid.
Too much
too
liquid.
Many different things are going into that baby at too big a number. The size of this thing, when you look at it, it's like 80 different vaccines and beyond vaccines, and 80. Then you give that to a little kid. I mean,
Okay, first of all, it's not 80. Second of all, we're going to play a second piece of this here. President Trump calls for spacing out vaccines. They pump so much stuff into these beautiful little babies, it's a disgrace. So he says essentially the same thing here. Let's play this.
You go for the shot, you do it over a 5-time period. Take it over 5 times or 4 times. But
so what he's saying is you lower the dose of the vaccine and you take it over 4 or 5 times. That's what he's saying, because there's too many shots now. This is what's so nonsensical about this.
You take it in smaller doses and you spread it out over a period of years. And they pump so much stuff into those beautiful little babies. It's a disgrace. I don't see it. I think it's very bad. They're pumping, it looks like they're pumping into a horse. You have a little child, a little fragile child, and you get a vat of 80 different vaccines, I guess, 80 different blends.
Okay, so I need everybody to use their brains here, please, with me. Please, everybody use their brains. He says we need to basically lower the dose and give more shots over a longer period of time. He says that at the beginning of the video, right? And then at the end of the video, he laments that you get 80 shots. Well, if you do what he says he wants to do, which is lower the dose and give more doses over time, you're going to have to get more shots. Does that make sense? Because he's saying we have to lower the dose and give more shots, and then he complains about the amount of shots. That makes no sense. If you do what he says, you're going to get more shots. That's the reason there are as many shots as there are, because rather than give live virus vaccines, which carry a higher risk of like giving someone polio by accident with a live virus vaccine, you give weaker versions of a polio vaccine with an inert virus over time, which means more doses, which means more shots. So you can't out of one side of the mouth say split them up over longer periods of time and then lament the amount of shots. That makes no sense. That is complete nonsense. That is a man with absolutely zero clue what he is talking about. So if you go, and this is from Children's Health Defense, this is the vaccine skeptic group here. Just I wanted to kind of steelman this a bit. When it comes to the number of shots, what you see, if you look, you give vaccines for the same disease over a period of time. That's what they're doing right now. That's why there are as many shots as there are on the schedule. It's not 72, but that's why there are as many as there are, because they're doing what Trump says. Now, if Trump says you have to do that more, well, the only way to do that more is to add more shots to the schedule. It's impossible to do what he's saying without adding more shots.
It seems like what they really added is a lot of flu shots.
Well, yes, that's the other thing. Well, this is the other thing. And this is why the 72 shot thing is really not real, because out of these 70 some odd shots, and it's not even quite 72 because they count, like if you get MMR, that's for 3 different diseases, they'll count that as 3 different shots, even though it's one jab, whatever. But yeah, out of however many shots are on the schedule, 20 of them are flu shots. 20 are flu shots. Flu shots are entirely optional in 44 out of 50 states. And of the 6 states where they're not entirely optional, they're only required for like preschool kids when they go to like pre-K or something. And I think that's only for like public pre-K. I'm not exactly sure on those details. There's only one state in the country that mandates flu shots for public school for every grade. That's Massachusetts. which I do not agree
that
with.
would have been
for
my
the record.
guess. That
Yeah.
would have been my guess.
Yeah. Which I do
I was
not-
already thinking
Yeah.
Massachusetts before
Yeah,
you said it.
which I do not agree with for the record. Now, if you want to say, hey, if they're not required, they should be off the schedule because the schedule is less credible when you add all these optional shots in that don't. That's fine. I'm not a zealot for the vaccine schedule. You can advocate for like adjustments to that.
And
But
I
the
also thought they
72
had a
shot
point on the
thing-
hepatitis.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. You could say these
Like,
things, but
does a baby need a sexually transmitted disease vaccine?
well, but the 72 shot thing is wrong. Out of the shots on the schedule, 20 of them are flu shots, which are basically entirely optional in almost every single state in the country. So, as you can see, what Donald Trump's saying there, it just doesn't make sense on its own terms. It doesn't make sense. This is proof the guy has absolutely no curiosity or concern what he's talking about. Well, they should break them up and split them up over a longer period of time. Okay, well, then you're going to have more needles. Right? That's what you're advocating for. You're advocating for more needles. But then the last part of it, you're saying, and there's so many shots. It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. Like, he doesn't make a cogent argument. Like, you have to make a cogent argument, which, of course, he does not. And by the way, for the spacing out of the vaccines, I can tell you as a parent, doctors work with patients to space out vaccines how you want. Like, I think people without kids have it in their head that you take your baby to the doctor, they drag him in the back room and he comes back with 10 holes punched in his thigh. That's not the case. Doctors are pretty chill about that. Like, we space out our guys' vaccines. Okay, well, if you want to do this time you can, or we can put this off a year and then start there and then we'll do this in another year for like, you have flexibility as it is. Doctors are not so stringent. No, you must get this now. Like, it's really not the way it works. People space out, but we space out ours. Like, we space out our kids back. Like, that is kind of normal. That's already happening. So when Trump says, well, you have to space it out, you can space them out. Like, you can space them out. Doctors are already pretty cool about all of that. So just a clear lack of curiosity from this guy, which does tell me that, yes, this is more a stunt than anything else. There doesn't seem to be any substance behind any of this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they opened up the door to people just being able to make claims without anything behind it. Like,
Right.
hey, man, you think it's vaccines? Prove it. That's called science.
Right.
Run studies. Like, I'm open to it. I don't know.
Of course.
Do studies. You can't just say, well, I mean, they're just making purely a correlation argument, which, again, like I said, I think you can make a stronger argument for smartphones and screens being behind it if you're just going to go with correlation.
Yeah, I mean, that may very well be the case. Like I said, the reason I don't talk about this stuff much is because it is complicated. But you don't need to you don't need to have a medical background.
And like RFK, we're not doctors.
Right. Well, you don't even have to have a cursory understanding of medicine to understand the self-contradictory idiocy of what he just said, which is they need to have lower doses and space out the shots out of one side of your mouth, and then the other side. Can you believe how many shots? They space out the shots. That means more shots. If you follow Donald Trump's advice, you'll have over 100 shots. So it's one or the other. It's one or the other. You can't say both things. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. And we're supposed to take these people seriously as a health authority, right? And this is where what Russ said earlier, people get into a binary trap. Well, because we couldn't trust Fauci, that means we must trust them. No.
Right.
No, not at all.
What if
all.
everyone's a fruitcake, a crackpot, compromised, and politicizing science?
Right.
What if
the
everybody
failings of the previous regime empowered this regime, which I would argue is as crazy, just in a different way.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. All right. So let's go on here. Which war did politicians come out against? I'm not sure what argument you're making here. You seem very wed to this. Yeah, no. I mean, the military-industrial complex owns a lot of politicians. What we're saying is that we think support, and that's corrupt as well, too, by the way. That has a lot to do with bribery in politics. Like, are you saying every politician is ideologically pro-Israel and pro-war, and that they're not subject to that kind of corruption? Seems like you're minimizing corruption, and you're just saying people are voting for pro-war ideologues. That doesn't make that much sense. Thank you, Sean. Jolly Van Big Boy, freedom of speech issues surrounding millionaires like Kimmel get paraded as a central cause of the struggle. The biggest issue is the crackdown on the working class who can't afford lawyers. Yeah, yes.
I mean, of course it is, but unfortunately, that's a very visible case in a way that the guy who got fired from Amazon because of his political activities just will never be. It just won't. And so you, as an activist, have to jump on that attention and take advantage of it to elevate the cause. It's unfortunate, but it's just reality.
Right. Captain Vader, have you heard of TPUSA's Professor Watch List? Yes. Yes. I think I know what you're talking about. I haven't heard it referred to as a watch list, but they have a list of
I know
professors. Yeah.
people who have been doxxed and threatened as a result of that list.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Punish J&J for not doing mRNA for Palantirs at Convid. Thank you for that. John Smith, the Tylenol memes are already great. Internet W. Thank you. Well, and look, this is where like I saw this right when it was too late to include it, but you have these stupid fucking libs who are pregnant women now filming themselves taking Tylenol as an act of defiance, which, I mean, okay, clever. But it says right on the fucking box, once again, you're not supposed to abuse it in that way. So taking it when you don't need it just to get a dig in at Donald Trump on TikTok is fucking stupid as well.
Perfect example of what I'm saying. No one's coming to save you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an argument against these guys still is not an argument for the other ones.
It's still not. I probably should have just for balance because that's an important point to make. Maybe I'll cut this in that you have people on TikTok taking Tylenol when they don't need it to try and score a point against Donald Trump. That's equally stupid because once again, it says on the box, you're supposed to consult your doctor because it does carry some risk when pregnant. All right, maybe I'll edit that in. All right, got that in a can. So this is filmmaking, folks. Filmmaking live on the fly. We'll put that in post. Convid was us adapting 5G radiation. Wuhan first to 5G. Interesting. Was Wuhan the first to 5G? I didn't know that. That's crazy. That's weird. Should get Rex Jones on to talk about that. A guy named Shulman who funds reactionaries and hooligans to push the Zionist cause. Sound like a Seinfeld plot. Yeah, it's like Bookman being the library cop. Shulman. Yeah, we got to go to our donor, Mr. Shulman.
He is the General Grievous of AIPAC.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go on to our next story. Kamala. She's got a book out that drops today, apparently.
It's kind of amazing because you would think this would have gone through editors who are not sociopaths, incapable of assessing the real world impact of their words. But I guess they just let Kamala wing it with this memoir because it's very Kamala. Like, this is someone who's incapable of reading human emotions idea of how to rehabilitate herself from this crushing loss, of how to assert her independence and forthrightness. Buttigieg would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight white man, Harris writes in a passage of her soon-to-be-released book, 107 Days. But we were already asking a lot of America to accept a woman, a black woman married to a Jewish man. Part of me wanted to say, screw it, let's just do it. But knowing what was at stake, it was too big of a risk. So now she went on Rachel Maddow, and that was too much even for her. Now, Buttigieg addressed this a few days before her appearance. This is what he said.
Chance to talk to former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and asked him to respond to former Vice President Kamala Harris's latest book excerpt published by The Atlantic, in which she says that picking him as her vice president would have been far too big a risk and that America wasn't quite ready for a gay vice president alongside a black woman president. Here's what he told me.
Well, I was surprised when I read that. I just believe in giving Americans more credit than that. My experience in politics has been that the way that you earn trust with voters is based mostly on what they think you're going to do for their lives, not on.
And if you're beaten in the Iowa primary and you have connections to the people who are doing the tallying, it's useful to claim victory before the numbers are in,
right?
And have your friends and donors rig the numbers in your favor.
Right. Turn the machines off.
Turn the machines off
until you get the numbers you want.
I wouldn't have run for president if I didn't believe that. I was right here in Indiana when this state turned blue for the first time since LBJ, and it wasn't wasn't Bill Clinton who did it. It wasn't John Kerry who did it. That happened in 2008 when Barack Obama was leading the ticket. And just again and again, my personal experience getting reelected.
If you have a politician far more talented than myself on the ticket who's of an unconventional identity, they can win. Can a knockoff Timo version of Obama like
Yeah, right,
myself
exactly,
do
yeah.
it? Probably not.
In South Bend and a lot of other things have just shown me that you just have to go to voters with what you think you can do for them. And that's why I'm here in Indiana right now. We did this big rally on redistricting, trying to make sure that we can make the case for.
Given my numbers with black people, my people are telling me you really, really got to juice the white vote. So, of course, we came
Yeah.
right to Indiana. We're going to Maine next.
Politics, it's about the results we can get for people and not about all these other things.
Okay, so here is Kamala on the visibly uncomfortable Rachel Maddow show trying to make this make sense.
I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear. Yeah. With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for president of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized
So it is
because
because he was gay.
Risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life.
Yeah,
So
you
it wasn't about yeah, right. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my
Rachel
part,
Maddow
but
should have run with her. Yeah.
That we had such a short period of time. And the stakes were
All right, so watching Maddow here is fascinating because, Maddow is a horse whore. She can't throw Kamala under the bus. But at the same time, as this very prominent gay figure, she cannot not ask this. But you can see Kamala, oh yeah, I know you feel about these causes. Yeah, she just basically repeats what she said in the book here.
so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant.
Mm-hmm. I just said that after I lost
America
already.
Is and would be ready for that. But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was being too cautious. I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that.
Oh,
maybe
God.
I was.
What a fucking idiot.
But that's the decision I made, and I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
With a great deal of sadness about also the fact that it might have been a risk.
That's funny.
We decided 107 days was not enough time to send everyone a glow stick.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
there was just no way we were going to persuade America that it would be fun to have Pete Buttigieg as vice president. Yeah.
You need at least 113 days for a gay candidate.
For a gay candidate to convince people
Yeah.
out of their homophobia. Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's really, that's classic Kamala.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, it's not because he was gay. It's because of what Donald Trump would have said about him being gay. And we didn't have enough time to de-gay him in the public mind enough for Trump's attacks not to be effective. So it was because he was gay then.
It takes a long time to grow a beard. He didn't have that beard ready.
He didn't
If he
have
had the beard
if
ready,
you remember,
maybe we
he
could
was
have done
clean.
it.
If you remember, he was clean shaven
He's clean shaven.
that time.
Yeah. You only had 107 days.
So Robbie Starbuck said, She picked Waltz, so I don't think she was that concerned about the risks. Colin Rugg, Pete is less gay than Tim Waltz. You could definitely make an argument. You could definitely make that argument. Dr. Lucienne Wolf, Kamala just said the quiet part out loud. She couldn't risk putting Pete on the ticket because he's gay, then backtracked, then admitted it anyway. So which is it? Denial or confession? Because both can't be true. This isn't leadership. It's panic on camera. I would submit to you, a lot of people said that, oh, we absolutely can't have Kamala as president. Look how terrible she is. I submit to you that you missed a big opportunity because you could have 4 years of that kind of humor.
Oh my
You could
God.
have 4 years of that kind of ridiculousness. I think this is America's loss, man. 4 years of that would have been something else. Now, what's really funny about this is she has, if you want to talk about strategy, if I were working in some very weird universe, number 678 on the quantum timeline universe, where I am Kamala Harris's political director, she has a perfect opportunity to both draw attention to herself, destroy Buttigieg's chances in any future primary she might want to take part in, and also to do what she seems to desperately be trying to do with this book, but isn't willing to do any of the things that would actually do it. Establish some kind of independence from the Democratic Party and from the Biden administration she was a part of. So this was a pretty funny meme.
Yeah.
Anyway, this one is called Intersectional Reaganism. Pete Buttigieg with a guitar. But hey, man, as a black woman being asked about why you didn't pick Buttigieg, it's a fucking give me, man. The guy is leading her in the polls, last poll we know of in June. 16% Pete Buttigieg, 13% Kamala Harris. Now that tells you, for all their talk of diversity, who really votes in the Democratic Party, because 2028 Dem frontrunner beating Kamala Harris has 0% black support, poll finds. 0%. That is a fucking gift. You get asked this question, you say, I didn't feel that I could represent the black base of the Democratic Party, which is such an important part of the Democratic Party, with a candidate that we can discuss the reasons why, but this is a candidate who has consistently demonstrated that he is absolutely rejected by that community. And as somebody who would potentially be the first black woman president, I didn't feel I could ignore what black voters are telling us. Boom. Boom. You get the spotlight. You don't just throw Pete under the bus. You throw him under the street, under the bus with that. He'd never come back from that. And you have actually said something that people will like for the first time maybe in your career.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, look, the conversation begins and ends at Pete Buttigieg 0% black support. So yeah, he's leading now with 16% in a field of what, a dozen people. With 0% black support, your ceiling is incredibly low in a Democratic primary. This is the thing. Like, yeah, she's a fucking duplicitous, double talking dirtbag who says, no, I didn't say I didn't pick him because he was gay. It's because we only had 107 days and he's gay. Like, it's insert red herring here. Plus he's gay. Yeah. That's why I didn't pick him. So, that notwithstanding, the fact of the matter is, the whole premise of the question, the whole dilemma itself is based on this liberal class delusion that Pete Buttigieg can happen. Pete Buttigieg cannot happen. He cannot happen. He's at 0% black support. This is after 6 years.
Yeah, when he was running in the primaries, it was the same thing. He was polling 0% in North Carolina.
It's not like he just came onto the scene. Right. It's not like he just came onto the scene. You've been trying to make this guy happen for 6 fucking years, and he's still at 0% black support, which means Pete Buttigieg is a non-starter. He is unelectable. You cannot win a primary or a general as a Democrat with 0% black support. And so Democrats really need to get through their head that Pete Buttigieg is a non-starter. There's no reason to even be talking about Pete Buttigieg.
Right.
The idea that he would have been a great VP candidate if Kamala could just get over her concerns about him being gay is nonsense. The guy is not a viable national candidate. A Democrat with 0% black support is not viable. He should not be discussed. He's not even in the conversation if you have 0% black support. But liberals, just like with Obama, we were talking about this offline, they see a good version of themselves in supporting Pete Buttigieg. It makes them feel good to support Pete Buttigieg, just like it made them feel good to support Obama, just like it made them feel good to support Hillary Clinton, right? They didn't get that same good feeling about themselves when they supported Joe Biden. That's why they had to be browbeaten into voting for Joe Biden, right? He does not appeal to their sensibilities in the way that a Pete Buttigieg does, but that's all it is. That's all it is. Look at the numbers. There's no way the guy can win. He can't win anything. He can't win a primary, cannot win a general election. There's absolutely no reason to be paying any mind to this guy whatsoever. So the fact that this is even a topic of conversation shows how out of touch the Democratic Party is with not just the public, with their base. Black voters at your base. He's at 0 with black voters. Why are you even paying this guy any mind? It makes no sense. It's insane.
Well, and you could see with the way that Rachel Maddow was framing that, you'd be the first black woman, you'd be the first black South Asian woman. This is, they are still clinging to a politics where you can present yourself as left with no economic theory and with no class critique. Without that, what do you have? Like, everything has to be a conversation about identity as a substitute for economic progress. And in Pete, they get that fulfilled. If that's your politics, Pete makes sense. In spite of his 0% black support, their black base cannot afford a politics that shallow. And that's why, like, Pete is just too obviously an empty identity politics ploy for them to go along.
Yes, exactly. Well said. Good point, Charles. Hey, folks, if you want to become a member, become one of the cool kids, you can do so by going to dudissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. It is Film Club night tonight, so we will see members at 8 p.m. For our Film Club stream, which will have call-ins afterwards. So make sure you sign up if you want to be a part of that and get all these other perks. Perks include your name up in lights on the patron scroll. You also get call-in access to our weekly Q&As, which happen every Sunday night after the main show over on Rumble. You also get access to our post-game extended live streams, which we do once a month. That'll be coming up within the week as well. So you'll be getting lots of member benefits this week. We thank you all very much for your support. Another perk that people like is you get every live stream emailed to you the day after ad-free. So you get an ad-free live stream replay. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with the ad interruptions, you get a video emailed to you where you can watch it back free of commercial interruption, all for just $5 a month. So go to dudissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals to sign up. You guys are the backbone of the show. We thank you all for your support. Another added perk is you will get an end credit in our upcoming Uhuru documentary. So that's cool. We put our patrons at the end of our Jose Vega documentary, and we will do the same at the end of this next film as well. So thank you all very much for your support. I'm a PA in primary care. Huge rise in level 2 and 3 autism in past 20, 30 years. Can't be chalked up to genetics alone. Something else is driving this, and sure as hell isn't acetaminophen. Yes, I mean, I could have got, like I said, like, I'm just addressing the, like, obvious stupidity. I don't like chiming in on health issues, but this was just so obvious and so clownish where the guy didn't even know what acetaminophen was at the beginning. And the inconsistencies, the fact that their advice, the only actual advice they have is already printed on the fucking box. Like, are you kidding? Like, it was such an obvious political stunt. That's what interested me about the story. And yeah, his vaccine talk about splitting up the doses because we already have too many shots. Well, splitting up the doses means you get more shots, not less shots. Like, it's just logic. And yeah, there were a lot of, like, Maha doctors who were like, I almost put this in the segment. I probably should have. One of the other Maha doctors was asking, like, do you think, asking her followers who were Maha, do you think acetaminophen causes autism? And they're like, no, No, like nobody really buys that. It seems like I said, a way to give do your little thing about autism. So that we go ahead, say your little piece about autism. Basically, the substance of what we're saying is already printed, it's already known, and that's it. Trump will go up there and riff in a way that makes you look really fucking dumb, but that's okay. That's par for the course, and that's that.
Sir, the chuds are catching on. This might be a good time to talk about autism. Yeah, I like the way you think, Bobby.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I think that is more than anything else. In the NICU where I work, we have a contest to see whose baby cries less when giving a vaccine shot. I've gotten it down where the baby asked me, "Is it in yet?" Oh, wow. That's what they say on Epstein Island. Is it in yet? Yeah. So do you work there? MAHA stands for Make Americans Hysterical Always. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what an embarrassment, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. What a fucking embarrassment. Like, you have this big fucking rally, this whole campaign, and that's what you get. That's the culmination of this. They've been teasing this press conference for like months. We're going to get to the bottom of autism. What is don't take it, not good. Vaccines, too much liquid. It's the problem. Is a lot of liquid. I mean, that's what you got to show for all this. Wow. What are you gonna do? Truth seeker, Zionists practiced terrorism before 1948. Were they rewarded by statehood? Yeah, good point. And a major terrorist leader, Begin, went on to be PM and get the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, Begin. Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Yeah, they just had Al-Jilani speaking at the UN.
Yeah, they just had the
we love him now.
You got fucking Petraeus sitting down with Al Qaeda in New York City. Yep. In New York City, history repeats itself. You saw U.S. officials posing with Bin Laden, real nice in the 70s.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
25 years later, what happens? That happens 25 years later. 25 years later after that, what happens? The head of Al Qaeda's at the UN. Like, dude, man, like it is.
Well, that's why anytime these fucking criminals tell you should be angry about this, you should direct your eye, ignore them.
Yeah.
Ignore them. They're playing a game. It's all about keeping you distracted and fixated on things that are not in any way going to improve your life.
Right. Exactly. All right. What do we got over here? We got I saw someone saw about the rifle to disassemble it would automatically eject the spend round casing. That contradicts the fact that it was found with the casing in it. Interesting. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. After that horrible Shulman joke, you should use the Jack Nicholson Joker soundboard. The pen is truly mightier than the sword. Thank you for that. Thank you for doing the horse carriage segment Sunday night, says Vito. Very interesting. Cancer sucks. You guys rock.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that.
Should have gotten Tom O'Neill on for that.
Yeah, that would be good. He could do the horse and carriage circuit, not mention his book at all. Yeah. All right, thanks for coming on.
Dude, he really wanted to talk about that. That was a condition of the Jimmy Dore appearance.
Yeah, no, he wasn't going to come on, and then Russell kind of schmoozed him with the horse and carriage talk.
Yep.
Yeah. Healing Tarzan says, wrote you guys a poem. I do not like fascism wrapped in an American flag. I do not like fascism wrapped in a rainbow flag. I do not like it in a plastic bag. No matter who you serve it to, it makes me gag. You put Sam I Am at the end of that.
That's good.
Do not like it, Sam I Am. Good one. Unitards. Everything's a scam. Everything's a lie. Everything's hypocrisy. And so I don't comply. There you go. I got a lot of poetry going on. This is extremely dangerous to our uniparty. There, I fixed it. Thank you, Vianticus Prime. People still believe they're informed because they pay attention to both sides of the boomer groomer media. Thank you. Yes. Jose Vega being Jose Vega. We need a true dissident in Congress. Thank you, Bronx Comrade.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, that is a perfect correspondent for this channel.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry I'm late, dirtbags. Just got out of a meeting with the Dark Order of the... What is that?
Rosicrucian.
I don't even know what that is.
Black Cube Jesuit.
Yeah.
It's one of the like secret societies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never heard of that one. I guess they're successful.
I mean, they're not so secret. You know what's funny?
You stayed under my radar.
Rosicrucians just fucking opened a storefront a few blocks from me in Harlem.
Oh, really? Wow.
I was like, of all places, the Rosicrucians. Yeah.
They're hiding from me well enough. The Rapture will be commencing tonight on schedule. So, yeah, pretty much. Thank you for that. Can't trust these doctors. They'll prescribe you a semen fed to men. Thank you for that. Eric Rousseau says also a show that autism is caused by anti-Semitism, so use Jew hate sparingly. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good one. Trump just said Ukraine can take all the territory lost with NATO. Help, LOL. World War III progressing right on schedule. Yeah, I saw he was meeting with Zelensky today. Yeah, no. Well, hey, folks, look, all of this to say, be careful using Tylenol when you're pregnant. That's the real benefit of this administration. Just to tell, pregnant women.
I think it was all worth it.
Yeah, it was all worth it to learn what every doctor already knows. Yeah. Professor Brownnote, DD had any of these on? Medea Benjamin? No.
Kind of,
yes,
because I interviewed her on the street.
Rania Kolick? No, we'd love to have Rania Kolick on. Caitlin Johnson doesn't really do many interviews.
She doesn't really do interviews.
Nora Barrows Freeman, I don't know who that is.
Tusker, Savvy's
yes.
been on.
Yep.
Wolf, well, after tomorrow, because he's going to be at that thing, I'm hoping I can get some time with him on a sidebar and interview him a little bit. And who else was on there?
Pankaj Mishra, I'd never heard of her. Quinn Slobodian, no. Doug Henwood, no. We had Doug Henwood's wife on way back. He's married to Liza Featherstone, who we had on way back. She's cool.
So Keaton is going to be taking some time off between this and his job at the car wash. It's going to be a bit much. He has the twins doing the hubcaps. That's a whole thing. Tusker's going to be one of the co-hosts.
Yes, I'm taking a brief autumn retreat in October, toward the end of October. I'll be around for the next month.
Gonna go pumpkin picking, all that.
Yeah, exactly. Apple picking. Go drink some apple cider.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I will take a few shows off, and yes, Tusker will be one of the fill-ins. Netflix documentary of Chaos suggests that much of O'Neill's theories are unproven and far-fetched about Manson. Well, from what I hear about that, it was a very concise retelling of the book. Like it was
it didn't really
do it justice. Yeah, that's what I heard. Let's see. Vianticus Prime says, I wouldn't look to the screens as the main cause, but me and many others have pointed out the dangers of pulsating electromagnetic fields for years with no one listening. I put a video up a while ago. Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's all genetic. Like I said, this is what my kid's doctor said, and this medicine is all about percentages and playing the odds. You never say never, you never say always. There's always a combination of things to consider. It's always a game of likelihood. So yeah, I think there's probably some validity to that. Yep. All right. Let's move on. All right, we got one more segment. We got time for one more because we got film club tonight. So let's go to Stephen Miller.
All right. Let me assume the position. I don't know why I like to do my segments cross-legged. I don't know why. I guess I'm opening up the chakras.
I think it's subconscious fear of rejection. You want to guard your balls while you do your segments. So that
opens up. What do you mean? That opens up my balls.
To cross your legs opens up your balls?
No, I'm sitting cross-legged.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Yeah. So like you're meditating. Yeah, in that case, your balls are very vulnerable. Yeah. So all right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So
I'm actually maybe that is what I'm opening up to the audience.
Yeah. He does his segments balls out.
I offer my grundle to the audience.
Yeah. I thought by cross-legged you meant when you sit with your legs crossed, like one over the other.
No, why would I sit like that? No man sits like that.
That's why I was saying.
Yeah, no.
I thought you were a pussy.
Oh, yeah. No. Okay. This caught my eye. The Stephen Miller speech at Charlie Kirk's funeral was pretty on the nose for a crypto Nazi. He just kind of brought it all out into the open. And a lot of people have been drawing this parallel, which I think is appropriate. How the Nazis turned Horst Wessel into a propaganda legend. Horst Wessel was a devoted member of the SA, the paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party. Born in 1907, he fell into the violent radical politics of Weimar Germany as a young man. He joined the Brown Shirts and became a street fighter for Adolf Hitler's movement. In 1930, Wessel was shot and later died of his injuries. His death might have remained a small footnote in the chaos of Berlin, the result of a personal dispute with a communist opponent. Instead, Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda chief, seized on Wessel's death and transformed it into myth. He recast Wessel as a martyr who had given his life for the Nazi cause. Goebbels needed symbols to mobilize the masses, and Wessel's murder became the raw material for a story of sacrifice and loyalty to Hitler. That sounds familiar. Now, Stephen Miller's backstory is pretty interesting here. Is Jim Stewartson, who's done a lot of work on this particular subject, how Stephen Miller became American Goebbels, groomed by professional bigot David Horowitz from Boyhood. Miller, well, at that time they were thinking of him for National Security Advisor. This was from back in May. Stephen Miller was raised in a wealthy Jewish family in liberal Santa Monica, California, living in a $1 million house and going to private schools. But when his father ran into financial troubles, they had to move to a slightly smaller house in a more diverse community, and young Stephen had to go to a public school. Fueled by hatred of his new surroundings, he sought out the soothing diatribes of Rush Limbaugh and Horowitz, who reflected Miller's hatred of anyone who wasn't white back to him. But it was Horowitz, who was raised in a communist family and began his career as a self-described Marxist, who took young Stephen under his wing when he heard Miller at 16 years old on the Larry Elder Show, raging against the immigrants he felt were polluting his high school. So, hey, man, say what you want about America. This is why they call it the land of dreams. You know, apparently being at the head of a kind of a fascist roundup of immigrants was his boyhood dream. And now here he is. Living the dream. So there is, if you're not a Nazi, you might not be cued into a lot of the kind of dog whistles that Nazis use to signal their worldview and affiliations. But Stephen Miller's speech at that funeral was full of them. So here's a little bit of a video that gets into some of that.
One is actually freaky, so stick until the end. We start with this guy. Remember him? This is Richard Spencer. He briefly became the most famous neo-Nazi in America after Trump's first election with this speech.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
This is when neo-Nazis were starting to rebrand as alt-right, but as you can see, they were still super mask off. If you don't know, Hail Victory is English for Sieg Heil. Anyway, listen closely to this part of the speech.
I did not know
To be
that.
white is to be a striver, a crusader, an explorer, and a conqueror. We build, we produce, we go upward.
And that is a regular neo-Nazi talking point that you hear often these days, that white people build, create, invent things, that they're the source of civilization or whatever. Keep that in the back of your mind, but enough of Richard Spencer for now. Because this rotten hard-boiled egg is Stephen Miller. He's one of the only high-level White House staffers that stayed with Trump after his first term. And he's Trump's main immigration advisor, the architect of Trump's immigration policy. And even though he comes from a Jewish family, his own family members say that guy totally would have been an SS officer back in the day. Anyway, this is a section of his speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial.
Okay, so I have that from a different source, again from Stewartson. So he has very good subtitles on it. So let's listen to the section that's really gone viral.
Whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erica is the storm. We are the storm. And our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion. Our lineage and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. They produced the art and architecture. They built the industry. Erica stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of warriors, of women, who raised up families, raised up city, raised up industry, raised up civilization. who pulled us out of the caves and the darkness into the light. The light will defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal. You have immortalized Charlie Kirk. And now millions will carry on his legacy.
And this is why I'm always telling black people, man, look, it might be fun when the dorky white kid shows up at your public school to give him a wedgie, but, you know, he could wind up being a member of a future administration. You know, this is what happens when a guy goes to a school that's not all white, gets a wedgie in the locker room, and nurses a grudge for the rest of his life over it. So people are really comparing this to The Storm is Coming by Joseph Goebbels' speech he gave in 1932, going into an election when they still had elections there. So you do a side-by-side comparison. He didn't crib it specifically, but thematically, he's pretty clearly enamored of Mr. Goebbels' work. So our dead comrade Horst Wessel wrote, and we are fulfilling his prophecy. The others may lie, slander, and pour their scorn on us. Their political days are numbered. From Stephen Miller. The day that Charlie died, the angels wept, but those tears had been turned into fire in our hearts, and that fire burns with a righteous fury that our enemies cannot comprehend or understand. From Goebbels, they promised you workers, citizens, and creative Germans a Reich of freedom and beauty and dignity. From Miller, you are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. And from Goebbels, people rise up and storm, break loose. From Miller, the storm whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erica is the storm. We are the storm. So this is a little bit of an examination of some of where this is coming from. There are several central features of Goebbels' July 1932 speech which bear a striking resemblance to Stephen Miller's central storm metaphor designed to inspire an image of elemental violence. Existential dehumanization of the enemy is nothing. Martyrdom transformed into an immortal mission. Millenarian, I always have trouble pronouncing that, millenarianism as mystical privilege, generational destiny, and civilizational rescue as moral imperatives. So just a few of those points pulled out. The storm is coming. The storm was common in Nazi imagery, but Goebbels' 1932 speech was one of his favorites. He repeated the storm break loose metaphor in numerous later speeches. The storm is coming is also one of the most common QAnon slogans, which has been reposted by Donald Trump more than once. Both speeches present a prime illustration of DARVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender, and share striking linguistic parallels. Miller, the dragon you have awakened. You have no idea how determined we will be to save this civilization, to save the West, to save this republic. Goebbels, well, we the people have awakened. We have risen against oppression. 15 million people have joined in an army of revenge. millenarian Aryanism. There, I got it that time. The white supremacist racial undertones of Goebbels' speech were largely implied, while Stephen Miller's were more explicit. Miller's explanation of our lineage and our legacy leads strictly through white European history, skipping over every other human civilization. You notice that? It goes through Athens, Rome, Philadelphia, not the one here, the ancient one, Monticello. That's something. I think that rhetoric is so tied up in our culture that a lot of people wouldn't even think about what he's saying about civilization. And this is where the Zionists, which Stephen Miller is a fanatical one, have wed themselves to these Western chauvinists, right? By trying to claim that Israel and Judaism is part of that legacy of Western civilization fighting against the barbarian hordes. The light will defeat the dark is intentionally dual meaning. Dark is wicked and evil. Light built everything good. It is racist to its core. Why it matters. Unlike Donald Trump, whose only ideology is his own narcissism, Stephen Miller is a true ideologue. His path has been unwavering since he was forced to go to a Santa Monica public high school as a boy. He has wanted to wreak revenge on the entire liberal democratic project and everyone who is not white ever since. He cannot be argued out of his goal. He cannot be persuaded to moderate. He is determined to ethnically cleanse America. Wait until they tell him that a lot of these people don't like Jews either. he's really convinced himself he's in the club. The fact that he is so obviously intimately acquainted with the rhetoric of the chief propagandist and planner of one of the worst mass killing machines the world has ever known should be of serious and immediate concern. None of it is accidental. Stephen Miller seems to have practiced all his lines in front of a mirror. And here is Stephen Miller side by side with Goebbels. And I got to say, they kind of bear a resemblance to each other, not just rhetorically.
These that you want in your city? No. These are the criminal migrants that Kamala Harris brought into your community. And as swiftly as they came, Donald Trump will send them back.
Und ehrt das Andenken dieser 7 Gefallenen.
This name of this one is Nazi Punks Fuck Off.
Yeah, that guy is a fucking Nazi punk. I think it's time. I think for a lot of us who really hate and hated the liberal tendency to overuse terms like Nazi and fascist, we developed an allergy to those formulations to the point that I think we tend to give too much of the benefit of the doubt. We did another story a couple of weeks ago about how all these PayPal mafia people, or touched on that, they have these ties to South Africa. They're from South Africa, or they lived in South Africa. David Sachs, Elon Musk, obviously, Peter Thiel. All these guys have these ties to South Africa, and they are very prone to making pronouncements about, say, white genocide, this sort of thing. And I think because the libs over-weaponized those accusations and deployed them in ways that were clearly unfair and designed to shut down argument and debate, a lot of us who actually are left have become very hesitant to call anybody a Nazi or to invoke that because we don't want to be like the libs who cried wolf about it for so long that people roll their eyes when you call these people Nazis. They're fucking Nazis. These people are Nazis. They're white supremacists. They have wedded their cause to Zionism, but for people like Huckabee, that's just because they need the Jews for Jesus bait. It's not really a deep connection to Jewish people. If Jesus comes back, the ones who don't convert get thrown into hell. This is a very, very weird, toxic mutation of white supremacy in which you have these Zionists like Stephen Miller have kind of convinced themselves that they and the white supremacists have the same cause, and that cause is we are the men of the West, right? We're going to defend Western civilization against the Asiatic hordes and the brown people. It is not an overstatement to say that these people are modern Nazi incarnations. Like, I think we have to start to overcome our distaste for that language because of the way the libs abused it and call it for what it is, man. I mean, when you're seeing a guy going up there who clearly, yes, he didn't plagiarize the speech. He is very clearly familiar with Goebbels' discography in the themes and the overall imagery that he's working with there. These guys, you're talking about somebody who going back to when he was 16 because they made him go to a public high school where he had to mix with the non-white people, has nursed this dream of going after immigrants and minorities, and then he goes up and makes this very Nazi-esque speech. You know, we got to start calling it for what it is. These people are literally Nazis, literally.
I mean, you see these kind of clash of civilizations, this kind of clashes of civilizations framing as a sort of Trojan horse for all kinds of things, right? Like after 9/11, that was the framing to manufacture consent behind Afghanistan, 20-year occupation, the Iraq War, right? Because a clash of civilizations narrative is broad enough to get a lot of people invested in it, even if they don't have the same like ideological commitments, you know, as this group or that group, you know. And I think the same thing broadly applies here when you talk about Zionism. Certainly, that's how it's framed, as clash of civilization. Immigration framed as clash of civilization. Like that framing casts a very, very broad net to the point where it's easy to corral a lot of people who are not necessarily white supremacists or Nazi sympathizers into a very, very far right program. Because people feel the stakes are so high. They feel that, you know, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures and extraordinary actions. That's how people were able to be corralled behind George W. Bush in his first term. It's how you got people to vote for a program that involves this just insane draconian expansion of the police state vis-a-vis ICE, right? With a guy like Stephen Miller basically dictating immigration policy. I mean, from what we understand, you know, he is really the architect of this immigration policy. Right. And so, you know, people, I think, are very easily corralled. And this is the real structural problem of like duopoly politics, is that people can be very easily corralled into supporting things that they don't really support. Right. And then once you vote for it and it's in there, it's too late. Most people don't support dragging day laborers out of Home Depot parking lots and putting them in indefinitely until they can figure out what to do with it. Most people don't support that. Most people support deporting violent criminals who are here illegally, and most people, you know, support generally a deportation program, which I don't think they realized was as cruel as it has to be in order to implement it. There's the thing, you can't without voting for a police state, because you can't just relocate someone that easily. You have to keep them somewhere until you find out where to put them. What does that require? A jail.
Well, and how are you gonna get all these people?
Catch them, right? You need people to go out and catch them, put them in the jails, which means you need ICE agents, right? So I think people are very easily bamboozled into supporting things with their vote and with their expression that are actually not, you know, in their hearts. And I think that is obviously a great danger. And, you know, when you see a speech like that, you see what the actual agenda is, right? And it's a chilling thing. No doubt about it.
Well,
no doubt about it.
I'm also, yeah, I mean, I don't think I agree with you. I think there are a lot of people involved who don't understand what they signed up for. You could say that about the Nazis too.
Well, of course.
That most of the people who would have been cramming in to hear speeches in Nuremberg, if you asked them, do you want to exterminate millions of people in camps with gas, would have said, what?
Well, no,
Right?
that's of course it's a historical fact. But yeah, no, this is what I mean by like this whole clash of civilizations framing is very powerful in that way because you attract more people than you would on the merits were
Right.
you to
Sure.
litigate each idea on its own.
Sure. And I will also point out, hey man, you don't need to be an expert in history to know what fucking nonsense that is. The Greeks had tremendous respect for Egypt and recognized them as the originators of their own ideas and civilization. They recognized the Egyptians as the inventors of architecture, as the inventors of philosophy, as the inventors of art. I mean, Mesopotamia, those people were not Western. That's not the West, right? China, we get paper, we get gunpowder from China. The West being dominant, that's a blip in human history. That's really the last few hundred years, if that. I mean, it's really a couple of hundred years that the West has been unquestionably dominant. I favored Jared Diamond's theories about that, guns, germs, and steel, that it has to do with some of the unique geographical features of Europe, creating competition between principalities and no way for one ruler to impose one bad idea that would hold the entire continent back. So you did have principalities that said, we don't want guns. What happened? They lost wars to the principalities that didn't. So there was this, unlike in China, where if the emperor had one bad idea, like we don't want to trade with the outside world anymore, that's really what caused them to stagnate technologically, because they stopped being exposed to other people's ideas. But if you look at what's happening in the East now, if you look at what's happening with a rising China that seems to be putting all of the pieces together, that center of gravity is likely to move back. And if you are a Westerner, if you have inherited the propaganda that the West has imparted to you, even if you don't mean to, you probably believe that essentially. You probably have that perspective, even if you think you don't, that Western civilization is better, that it has been more creative, that it's been on a better side of history, that other parts of the world, their ideas don't work as well. You probably, and that you can believe that and still see yourself as liberal. Like I would say most people in the West probably believe that to some extent, which goes to what you're saying. That's part of why a speech like that is so effective, because elements of those ideas have really been seeded into the Western mind. And all I could say is people are going to be in for a very rude awakening when, as I think will happen, as many people think will happen, as Chris Hedges has written about a lot, the game is up. The American dollar collapses, is no longer the reserve currency. And what is apparent to anybody about the way that technological advancement and prosperity is shifting from the West to the East becomes something that people can't hide from anymore. They're going to have a very hard time maintaining this premise that the West is the only builder of things throughout history, the only creators.
Well, yes, obviously. I mean, that's already true. If you just,
of course, it's a ridiculous thing to assert.
Just Google the name of any Chinese city, and that becomes very evident. Sunrise is not about who's got the most bullets. It's about who controls the information, what we see and hear, how we work, what we think. It's all about the information. Sneakers. Thank you, Sunrise. Lori Lamb says, check out the very interesting new book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality by John Leake and Peter McCullough. Thank you, Lori. Kit's Corner. I would like to see a politician write a choose your own adventure book. Blame opponent, page 65. Scream racism, page 100. Self-reflection, seek another book. Thank you. Lori Lamb says Dems are completely tone deaf and have been that way for a long time. If it wasn't for Trump hate, they would have ceased to exist by now. Thank you. Let's see here. What we go here. Al-Qaeda seems to mean the base, and considering what little I know of Arabic, it would make sense that it is shortened from something like the database, as has been suggested. Thank you, Vianticus Prime. Professor Brown Note says, my poem, Shit Sandwich, a haiku. They're coming for you. $1 trillion more to us. Look, a trans squirrel. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I like that. Look, a trans squirrel. I like that. Okay. Yeah, the Charlie Kirk Memorial turned into a Nazi rally, and Tucker and his huge balls compared Kirk with Jesus and implied the hummus-loving Romans were behind his death. Yeah, I really wanted to do the Tucker speech. I just didn't have the time. But yeah, look, I mean, of course, like, I'm a broken record on this. I don't understand people's surprise. Like, of course, that is going to turn into a political rally. Furrow Squeen, I only pay my €5 a month to see the Russell leg shot. Thank you, Furrow Squeen. Okay, as soon as Grundles were mentioned, I suddenly sound like a pervert. Sorry, Sorry, Russell. I'm about 3 minutes behind. Stephen Miller, shooting at the walls, a heartache. Bang, bang. I am the warrior. Well, I am the warrior, and heart to heart, you'll win if you survive. The warrior. The warrior. Stephen Miller's a Tylenol baby, if ever there was one. People are saying, yes, thank you, RU Poster. Appreciate that. Okay, what do we got over here? Sorry about that. Oh, sorry. There we go. Can't wrap my head around the Charlie Kirk debacle, but my feeling is that there are no innocent people involved, including Trump and Kirk's wife. I don't actually suspect either of them. I don't suspect his wife for obvious reasons, and Trump would be kept out of the loop, obviously, I think. Just as a lot of people speculate, George Bush was kept out of the loop on 9/11. That's why they parked him in that school in Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
My
get
pet
him
goat.
as fucking far away as possible from this. Yeah, exactly. So
If anyone could fuck this up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If anyone could fuck this up. One thing I tell people is that when it comes to terms like white power, stop thinking the adjective is the goal. The noun is more prominently the goal, and the adjective is more the means. Thank you, Vianticus Prime. Appreciate that. Mark Coor became a YouTube member. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Jim Taleb, thanks for the $2 super sticker. Calling them Nazis early was a deliberate psyop. Possibly. Thanks, Brad. I just donated $100 to Jose. I live in Pepin, Wisconsin.
Nice.
Thanks, Pete. That's great.
Nice,
Great to
Pete.
see you again,
Thank
man.
you, man.
Absolutely. Eric Torres says these people hate immigrants, but then they'll have Taco Tuesday. Exactly. Isn't Israel part of Asia, and therefore Israelis are one of the Asiatic hordes? Good point. Although they're not really. They're Europeans. They're just living in Asia.
Well, yeah.
That's the point.
That's the thing. I always tell my very Eastern European looking Zionist friends, go take a DNA test.
Right.
Tell me how much Middle Eastern ancestry comes up, because I took one.
Exactly. None. Soap opera. Do you think the service members at Abu Ghraib knew what they were signing up for? Well, that's a good point. I think a lot of military people don't, broadly speaking. Skyman says Benny went to the Wailing Wall, except he was on his knees and the wall was on the other side. Thank you. Yeah, good one. Appreciate that, Skyman. Thanks very much. All right, everybody. That is our show. Appreciate you all being here very much. We thank you all. Oh, Hardy Daylight says, unfortunately, most of our Western politicians are shameless, scrofulous, morally degenerate characters. It's true when they say shit floats to the top. We now see the result of that. Amen. All righty, folks, that's our show. Film Club is later tonight at 8 o'clock. You should have those emails in your inbox for members. So thanks, everybody, for joining. If you'd like to join us for that, it starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we are, what are we doing tomorrow? Well, Russ is going to Shama's event tomorrow. And then we're going to be back here 12 o'clock on Thursday. That is when we'll see you all next. Until then, thanks to the YouTubers, thanks to the Rumblers, thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. You guys are all the best. Pleasure to see you as always on this afternoon. Thanks for spending it with us. And until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.